A luxurious hall. The sun's rays were breaking through the windows, and the lit candelabra gave even more light. The sound of a blow was heard. The blonde's eyes darkened. She was kneeling, and her sky-blue eyes were filled with contempt. A drop of scarlet liquid appeared in the corner of her mouth. The brunette angrily asked the girl how she dared to make Liliana cry. The girl was sad that Duke Damien was her fiancé. Smiling slyly, Liliana assured the guy that everything was fine with her. Our heroine didn't care, because she no longer felt love, anger, or hatred, but only irritation. The girl felt like an idiot because she fell in love with the Duke at first sight after meeting him one day at an event. The blonde fell in love with Damien 4 years ago and traveled long distances every day. The Duke asked the girl if she was tired yet. The brunette was surprised that the girl was following him even on such a day. It was raining. She carefully handed her lover an umbrella. The girl apologized with a guilty look for the inconvenience caused and assured the Duke that she really wanted to see him. With a deft movement of his hand, Damien knocked the umbrella out of the blonde's hands. A few moments later, the guy fell to his knees and began to writhe in pain. His body was shaking and his breathing was heavy and distinct. At that very moment, the girl rushed to him, wanting to lend a helping hand. The blonde was ready to do anything to get his attention and help him recover from a long illness. The girl belonged to the Circasia Count's family, which received the patronage of the imperial family. Everyone knew that those in whom this blood flowed could use and pass on healing abilities from generation to generation. The Duke saw her abilities and offered to be his bride. After the offer to be his bride, the girl's heart began to beat wildly. Ariane wanted to feel happy, not even suspecting that her lover did this only to use her. The girl consoled herself with the thought that if she tried, the brunette would at least look at her once. Unfortunately for the healer, Damien kept postponing the wedding under any pretext and allowed himself to be touched only when he was ill. Ariane tolerated this attitude towards herself until her lover brought another girl to the castle. The Duke ran into the room and asked his bride to heal the woman who was in his arms. Opening her eyes, Liliana saw the brunette's face and asked where she was. There was a genuine smile of happiness on the Duke's face. One day after returning from a walk, the girl heard strange sounds in her room. When Ariane opened the door, she found her lover cheating on her. That day, the healer's feelings disappeared. The girl truly knew that all those 3 years of efforts had been in vain. Because the blonde was madly in love with the Duke, she tried to deny everything. The healer told the guy that they could break off the engagement. Despite the pain inside, Ariane knew it was best for everyone. She explained that she would leave her lover with his new flame so that they could live happily ever after. The blonde angrily took the engagement ring off her finger and threw it away. The healer said that she would no longer interfere with the Duke's happy life. Damien rushed after the girl, trying to stop her. The Duke was outraged that she wanted to break off the engagement, and he asked what was happening to her. The healer reported that there was no longer an idiot from Circus's family who truly loved him. Ariane reported that everything was over between them and pulled her hand away. A few moments later, the blonde's heart was pierced by a sword blade. Scarlet liquid quickly began to flood the luxurious carpets. The girl looked at her fiancé in horror as he pierced her with a sword. She couldn't even imagine that he would turn out to be a psycho. Standing next to the blonde, who was exhausted from pain, Damien explained that he was sure that she would be obedient. The girl asked herself why she so stupidly loved such a worthless piece of trash like Damien. The Duke insisted that he couldn't allow others to use her powers. The guy pulled the weapon out of the blonde's motionless body. The healer was sure that if she could return to the past, she would not make such a mistake again. Ariane dreamed of tearing the boy's heart and soul to shreds, as he did to her. The last thing our heroine saw was the face of the hated but once loved man. The girl's eyes were quickly darkening. It seemed to her that this was the end. Someone gently touched the blonde's hand. The healer hesitantly opened her sky-blue eyes. Ariane couldn't believe her eyes. Sitting next to the bed, holding her hand, was her father, who had died 2 years ago. He was caressing his daughter's hand, quietly saying kind words. The man asked how she could sleep for so long on her birthday. The blonde admitted that he was scared when his daughter didn't wake up for so long. Ariane asked her father what he was talking about. The man laughed and noticed that she had not woken up yet and asked his daughter to get up as soon as possible. The healer could not believe that those painful memories were just her dream. The girl asked her father what year it was. After hearing the answer, our heroine realized that she had returned to the past 4 years ago on her birthday. Tears of happiness quickly began to appear in Ariane's eyes. The girl asked her father in surprise whether he really was standing in front of her. The blonde felt guilty for a long time that the man, trying to please his stubborn daughter, went to the battlefield to get a gift for the Archduke, after which he went to another world after his mother. The healer was incredibly happy that her father was standing right in front of her. The blonde asked his beloved daughter why she was crying. The daughter threw herself into her father's arms and clung tightly to him. Ariane wondered if this was just a dream. The man assumed that the girl had a nightmare. The father told him to ask the cook to make all her favorite dishes. Stroking his daughter's head, the count asked her to quickly get ready to go to the dining room. Having locked herself in the room, the healer realized that the events that had been worrying her for so long could not have been an ordinary dream. Ariane remembered the terrible days in the Archduke's house, and also her miserable death. The blonde was not going to miss such a chance. The healer was glad that Damien suffered from an illness that doctors usually couldn't cure. The girl understood that the Duke didn't yet know that only she could cure him. Ariane realized that she could use this chance to destroy the traitor. The Countess realized that if she did not prepare properly, she would put herself in danger. Ariane was sure that she needed the power to protect her family and go to war in her father's place. The girl remembered that there was a man who fit all these points perfectly. The blonde knew that despite the fact that Kassadin was a slave by origin, he became the commander of the Imperial Knights thanks to the help of the Crown Prince. The healer remembered that in his past life, the boy had been described in many words. Ariane knew that the slave was a great master of fencing who appeared once every 1,000 years. The maid carefully combed the luxurious, silky long hair of the mistress. The healer understood that she could not lose her father in a bloody war again. The Countess tried to convince herself that Kassadin was one of the few people who were much stronger than Damien. She was sure that the best swordsman in the entire empire would return from the war. Ariane realized with a shudder that at that moment the boy was performing as a slave in gladiator fights. The girl knew that only in a year the Crown Prince would notice the boy and bring him into the imperial family. The healer was determined to get the slave before the prince noticed the boy. The blonde knew that he would become a sword for their family. Ariane was sure that she had changed compared to the past. The girl was ready to do anything to protect herself and her father. Entering the dining room, the Countess was delighted to see the tables laden with food. Smiling, the man reminded his daughter that it was her birthday that day, and that it was quite natural. The blonde asked the girl to eat more. The Count asked Ariane if she wanted precious stones or a dress as a gift. The healer said that she had only one wish. The blonde insisted that she wanted a younger brother. The man hesitated a little at such a request. The Count asked what his daughter meant. The blonde could not believe that his daughter wanted him to marry again. Ariane assured that there was no need for this and that she was going to bring him herself. The Countess asked her father if he could trust her. The Count claimed that he trusted only his daughter. The man was perplexed. He did not understand why his daughter needed a younger brother. The healer explained that if a war broke out, one man from each family would have to go to battle. The blonde knew that breaking this rule could result in the loss of her title, confiscation of property, or even the death penalty. Ariane was sure that if she accepted into the families the unfortunate slave who suffered in gladiatorial fights, then that could solve the problem. The girl planned to communicate well with him. She hoped that she would be able to send him to the battlefield instead of her already elderly father. The blonde knew that Kassadin could become the commander of the Imperial Knights. She was sure that the slave was the only person who could defeat Damien in battle. The blonde said that he was content with just his daughter as his family. Ariane suggested that her words might sound strange, and asked her father to listen to her words once. The healer asked him if he thought he could become a big problem if others found out about her abilities. The girl explained that a strong person is always useful. The Countess explained that because of this, she needed a younger brother who could protect her and their father. Ariane reminded that she had never asked the blonde for anything like that. Smiling, the girl assured that she would bring a great and strong man who could protect them. The Countess assured her father that he would definitely like him. The man admitted that he had no idea that his daughter could think of such a thing. The blonde believed that his daughter would not just throw words to the wind. The father was sure that Ariane did it for reasonable reasons. The man noticed that his daughter had always been smart beyond her years. The count said that the daughter could have brought her younger brother or someone else. An expression of incredible joy appeared on our heroine's face. The girl rushed to her father with delight, hugging him tightly. Finally, the man asked the blonde to bring the right person. The blonde warned that he would not invite a suspicious person to enter the count's house. Sasha noticed that the mistress was beautiful. The maid asked Ariane if she liked the earrings and necklace. The brunette was sure that the jewelry would certainly suit the countess. Smiling, the lady assured that she really liked it. The girl asked the blonde where she was going on her birthday. The coachman carefully helped the blonde out of the carriage. The healer was glad that she did not see any representatives of the imperial family here. The girl was determined to take the slave as quickly as possible before the prince noticed the guy. Ariane asked the worker to take them to a better place. The clerk asked her ladyship to stand in line. The countess said that she would give him as much money as he needed. The brunette quickly changed his mind and let the girl skip the line. The blonde said that as an apology for skipping the line, she would pay for tickets for other viewers. The man asked in surprise if Milady would pay for everyone's seats. Ariane smiled and confirmed it. The blonde was well aware and that her family had a lot of money anyway. The girl knew that in exchange for the exclusive right to treat the imperial unit, they would fully provide for Circus's family. This information was only available to a select few. In her past life, the blonde broke the agreement when she healed Damien. Ariane, having shown her skills, refused to use them because she thought that this was the same love. The blonde didn't plan to make such a stupid mistake in this life. Entering the amphitheater, the healer glanced around and quickly found the purpose of her visit. The blonde pointed his finger at the gladiator and assured him that he had come to look only at him. The guy said that he was talking about the man with silver hair. Most of the audience came to see the silver-haired guy because he looked soft, but at the same time, he fought well. Kassadin quickly felt the girl's gaze and raised his amethyst eyes, peering straight into her soul. The blonde looked at the slave. She was surprised by his uniform, because the guy looked better than the others. Ariane was sure that he was there for the pleasure of the eyes, because for a gladiator appearance was not important. The host was sure that the audience had been waiting for this for a long time. The organizer asked which of these slaves would be the last one to survive. The brown-haired man said that before the battle began, the rules had to be heard. The man claimed that the weapon belonged to the slave who took it first. The host claimed that there was only one rule: kill your enemy and survive. The audience was delighted. The countess sadly realized that the slaves were not even people for the event's organizers. The blonde understood that the gladiators were just toys that could be thrown away if they suddenly became useless. Raising his staff, the brown-haired man announced that the battle was beginning. The crowd's delighted cries could be heard in the stands. After the participants were unshackled, they immediately rushed to the many weapons. But only Kassadin was calm and did not get into the thick of things. Soon the gladiator slaves began to destroy each other for the amusement of the crowd. The spectators were delighted by the bloody spectacle. The blonde covered her face with her hand, trying to hold back the nausea that was rolling in. The girl felt sad that the slaves were treated worse than cattle. It was painful for Ariane to see it with his own eyes in the arena, covered in human blood. Soon the brunette ran up to Kassadin and swung his sword at him. The guy dexterously dodged the blow and knocked his opponent to the ground. The blonde took the sword from the ground and with a lightning-fast blow cut the enemy's throat and thrust the sword into his side. Splashes of scarlet liquid were visible on the gladiator's pale face. The spectators watched the events with bated breath. And after the opponent was defeated, they began to shout the name of the winner. The girl calmly watched the slave, while the blonde peered into her soul through his sky-blue eyes. The host announced that the winner of this fight was Kassadin. Brown explained that it was quite rare to meet such a beautiful slave. The man said that whoever could pay the most would get a chance to spend a hot and passionate night with the winning slave. The countess was horrified to hear such a statement. The spectators began to bargain, wanting to temporarily get the winner for themselves for carnal pleasures. Soon the price skyrocketed from 10,000 to 500,000. Ariane raised her hand and said she could offer 5 million. The countess said that she did not want to get Kassadin for one night, however, and she asked if the offered amount would be enough to get the guy completely and forever. The host was taken aback by such a proposal. The blonde asked again whether he would answer her question. After the girl bought the gladiator, the brown-haired man wished her a good time. The blonde turned over her shoulder and said that they needed to talk. The blonde began to unbutton his shirt, exposing his muscular torso. The countess, a little taken aback, asked what he was doing. The slave wondered if this was why the girl had bought him. Opening his light shirt, the guy announced that he was ready to spend the night with the lady right now. The healer said that she had not brought him for that. Arian admitted that she could not take her eyes off his eyes, which seemed to be begging for help. The lady understood that in order for him not to be so wary of her, she had to mix lies and truth. Taking his hand, the girl said that it was painful for her to see that even on the back of his hand he had so many scars. Ariani explained that her initial plan was to buy him out and just let him go. The countess shared her fears that he could, however, be dragged back into the gladiator arena and used to entertain the aristocrats. The blonde squeezed the slave's hand tightly, after which the guy's scars disappeared. Cassadine was incredibly surprised. He asked the lady how she could perform such a miracle. The healer explained that it was the effect of a magical ointment that was secretly passed down in their family. The blonde asked why the girl had used such a valuable thing for him. Arian assured that despite the value of the ointment, human life was much more valuable. Lowering his eyes, the slave admitted that he had killed many people. The girl, trying to support him, reminded him that he had to do something like that to survive. The healer reminded him that Cassadine did not kill other gladiators because he wanted to. The lady asked the boy why he became a gladiator slave and where his family was. With his amethyst eyes downcast and filled with sadness, Cassadine told him that all of his family members had died a long time ago. The blonde shared that he had wandered the world all alone and found himself in the arena. Raising his empty gaze, the guy asked the lady what kind of person she was. Ariani said that she was the only daughter of Count Circius. The girl said that her mother died almost immediately after her birth. The blonde asked the guy how old he was. The slave said that he had recently turned 18. The lady noticed that she was 2 years older. Ariani asked if he wanted to be her younger brother. The boy asked in surprise if she really wanted this. The healer explained that in this way, Cassadine would be able to get rid of the stigma of a slave and become part of the count's family. The girl explained that in that case, he would no longer have to kill others, and no one would be able to simply ignore him. Smiling, Arian asked him if he wanted to become part of the count's family. Hope appeared in the slave's amethyst eyes. Cassadine said that if the mistress desired it, then he was ready for anything. The girl decided to introduce herself again. The slave gently touched the hand of the mistress Arian. The blonde said that the young man no longer needed to address her as mistress, because they would become a family. Smiling, the boy thanked his older sister, noticing that she had a warm heart. The heartbeat echoed in the girl's ears. The healer assumed that it was because the boy easily adapted to his environment, or because of his strange expression that only appeared for a moment. Ariani planned to make the blonde a part of their family to protect her father and herself. And what he thought himself, she didn't care. Smiling, the girl suggested going to the right place. The blonde hoped that her younger brother would become her shield and sword. The man was a little taken aback that his daughter brought a gladiator slave into the house and began calling him her little brother. The count explained that he would understand perfectly well if Arian decided to make him her guard, but not her younger brother. The father asked the healer what she was thinking about. The blonde said that he would immediately throw out this terrible man. The girl could not understand her father's anger, because she had warned him in advance that she would bring a slave. The healer apologized for not consulting the man and said that she had thought everything through in advance. She explained that if war came, the count would have to go to the battlefield as the only male of their line. Ariani assured that if there was another man in the family, the father would be able to avoid such a fate. She explained that Cassadine was a very talented man who would be able to return even after the war. The count looked at his daughter in surprise and asked if she had planned this from the very beginning. The blonde's hands began to tremble violently, but the healer gently took his wrists to calm him down a little. The count said he needed time alone. He asked to be given time to collect his thoughts. Coming out of her father's room, the blonde saw a beautiful sunset. The girl remembered with a shudder in her heart that at the same time she died at the hands of Damien. The healer despised the duke because she healed his heart, but he took the sword to hers. The countess heard the cries of the birds, and she realized that they were similar to human ones, which did not allow her to forget because of whom she died. The blonde dreamed of doing Damien 1,000 times worse than he did to her. Arian understood that she could not let the slave go, and he was supposed to become her younger brother. Entering the room, the girl asked with a smile if Kasadain had washed himself. The countess asked the servant to bring food directly to this room because her younger brother was hungry. Kassadine asked his sister if he looked strange. The healer assured that it was not at all, and she noticed that the clothes he had chosen suited him very well. The girl was very glad that this room had found its owner. The blond man lowered his eyes and said that he supposedly believed that someone like him shouldn't get so much attention. The older sister asked Cassidy not to say that. Arian reminded the guy that she brought him to the mansion so that he would become a member of their family. The girl assured that she would still be able to convince her father. The countess squeezed the slave's hand tightly, and he promised to prove his worth in return. The blonde asked what else the guy needed. The healer said that she could order it if something was needed. The gladiator explained that he had lived with a sword in his hands for so long that he felt uncomfortable without it. The brother told the blonde that he would be happy if he had any sword. The healer asked if there was anything else he liked besides the ball. Kassadin explained that that was enough. The slave claimed that even at that moment, it seemed to him that he was in a dream. Taking the girl by the hand, the blonde said that he liked her very much. The guy admitted that from their first meeting, he couldn't take his eyes off her. Closing his eyes and kissing her hand, Kassadin assured her that if this was a dream, he wanted to never wake up. The guy promised that even if Arian left him, he would never hate his sister for it. The healer was amazed that the man who was treated like an animal was throwing out the right words in just one day of their meeting. Arian suspected that there was a reason why he was still alive. Looking into his amethyst eyes, she realized that he was silently begging her not to leave him all alone in this cruel world. The lady told the guy that she was not going to leave him. The girl asked the blonde to feel free being near her. The healer knew it was best to play along until her younger brother opened his heart to her. Arian wanted to be caring and good, unlike the others. Leaving the room, the blonde asked Kassadin to rest and not worry about anything else. The sister told the guy that he could come to her room whenever he wanted, because she was right next door. The blonde wished his beloved a good night. In the dim candlelight, the healer carefully read the text of a small book. The girl was glad that she managed to find a book about medicinal and poisonous herbs that grew only in the north. The blonde remembered that around this time in the past, the emperor had completely recovered. Ariani remembered that at this point, her family had become much richer. That's when rumors started going around the county that they had a secret mine. The blonde remembered that, at the reception in honor of the crown prince's 20th birthday, she met a brunette. The healer remembered that a lot of her family's money had gone to Damien, and that she had met a tragic end. The blonde had no plans to forgive the traitor. The candle had already gone out, and the girl understood that there was only a month left until the reception in honor of the crown prince's birthday. The healer laid her head on the soft pillow, but she couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Arian's head was filled with many different thoughts. The countess understood that she needed to know more in order to oppose Damien. She couldn't afford to miss a single piece of information. As the girl began to sink into the long-awaited sleep, there was an insistent knock on the door. Kassadin told his sister that he wanted to tell her something. The girl rose abruptly from her cozy bed and asked her brother to come in. The guy looked down and said that he knew it was impolite to come at such a time, but he couldn't sleep. Slave, remember that the countess said that he could come at any time, so he decided to come to her no matter what. Smiling, the blonde said that she had been reading a book and had just lay down. Kassadin asked what kind of book it was. The guy read the title uncertainly, which surprised the blonde. The blonde explained that the rarer product was much more expensive, and he had to learn to read and write, as well as aristocratic etiquette. He sadly claimed that slaves were a common commodity. Ariani was surprised, because the more the slaves knew, the harder it was to control them. The girl understood that usually in the Seville Empire, slaves could not learn to write or read. The blonde understood that it was too early to interrogate the guy, since he was still wary of her. The girl asked Kassadin not to worry and promised that this would not happen again. The slave admitted that he couldn't sleep because of his worries, and he asked if the mistress would mind if he lay down next to her. Arian was a little taken aback by such a question. The healer remembered the guy's first question, which he asked her after buying her out of slavery. The blonde quickly realized that it was a test. The Countess was determined to prove the sincerity of her intentions. Smiling, the girl lifted the blanket and told the guy that if he wanted, he could lie down next to her. Ariani noticed that her younger brother was very worried about the change of scenery. The blonde said that every night he dreamed of those he was forced to kill. Kassadin explained that in his nightmares, the slain gladiator slaves would reach out to him with their bloody hands and frail necks, whispering why they were dead. The Countess reminded the boy that it was not his fault. The blonde explained that murder was murder, and there was no excuse for it. Ariani said it was normal because he was tormented by guilt towards the murdered man. The girl pointed out to him that he did not do it for pleasure, but for his own protection. The healer wondered if she appeared in the same way in Damien's dreams. The blonde admitted that it was the first time in his life that he had heard such words. The sister asked Kassadin what kind of life he had. The former gladiator explained that, before she came along, there was nothing special or interesting in his life. The healer was very sorry that she could not heal emotional wounds, unlike physical ones. Arian reminded that with time, even the deepest wounds heal, and the main thing was not to open them again. The blonde assured that only good days were ahead for her younger brother. The girl gently touched his cheek with her hot hand. Kassadin noticed that she was the only person in the arena who shone so brightly. The blonde thanked his older sister for taking him along. The healer closed her eyes rather quickly after a short time. Small streams of fresh air rocked the translucent curtain, through which the flickering of distant stars could be seen. The clock ticked its second hand rhythmically. Ariani opened her eyes, feeling the boy's intense gaze. Her brother gently moved a strand of silky blonde hair from her face. The blonde hovered over the girl and wished her sweet dreams, and carefully covered her with a blanket. When Kassadin left the room, the healer realized that he had lied to her. The Countess reminded herself that she, too, had pretended to be a sweet little sister and had imitated him. Ariani realized that in the gladiatorial arena, there were no feelings other than cruelty. The girl remembered that she had not expected him to trust her right away. She realized that she had only been waiting for the moment when the former slave would adapt to his new life. The healer was sure that the blonde would definitely meet Damien at the banquet. The Countess planned to enter the slave into the family register before that time and help him to free himself. The girl understood that the main problem was that she knew nothing about her brother. Arian had only met him once in her past life. At that moment, the blonde man stood behind the crown prince, and they only exchanged glances. The healer planned to find out more about him. The blonde planned to give the guy everything he wanted and make all his dreams come true. Walking quickly towards Mrs. Sasha, she reported that the owner had called the girl. The Countess asked the maid where Kassadin had gone. The girl only blurted out something awkwardly. The blonde, kneeling, threw a small bag at his feet. The guy's snow-white shirt was stained with blood. Picking up the linen bag of herbs, the blonde realized that it really was the smell of incense from the mountain temple he had recently spoken about. Arian asked her father again if he really had sent the boy to the cave near the steep cliff to the west for medicinal herbs. The healer reminded that a monster lived in that area. The girl asked why Kassadin went to look for these herbs. The Count admitted that last night he had been thinking about how the redeemed slave felt in his new place. The man had come to the conclusion that if the boy could pass the test, he would welcome him. The father informed Arian that he had passed the first test and that he would give him the next task. The healer asked the Count to wait a little. The girl hovered over her younger brother and asked if everything was okay with him. Smiling, the blonde assured him that he had simply gotten dirty with the blood of the beasts that were in the temple. The girl said that she thought that other stages could be avoided. The Countess assured that whatever task the father gave the boy, he would cope with it. Arian pointed out to the man that Kassadin had brought medicinal herbs and proven his worth. The girl asked permission to include the former slave in the family register as her younger brother. The healer assured that he would certainly become the pride of their family. The blonde put her hand on her heart and said that if her father did not accept the boy now because of his slave status, he could exclude her from the register as well. Ariani knew she looked more like a capricious child, but she couldn't do anything about it. The healer knew she couldn't delay the issue of acceptance into the family. The man assured her that his daughter was breaking his heart. He asked why the girl was so concerned about the fate of this slave. The blonde reminded the Count that he loved to enjoy herbal tea, which was grown on plantations by slaves. Arian explained that most of them were once aristocrats, but at one point they lost everything that was dear to them, including their position. The blonde reminded that the title was not eternal. The girl explained that social status was like a dream on a summer night or frost on the branches of trees on a winter morning. The healer assured them that Kasadin was just like them and asked the boy to be allowed to become part of their family. The man sighed heavily and joked that there were no parents in the world who had ever won an argument with their children. The blonde agreed to do as his daughter wanted. Throwing herself into her father's arms, the healer thanked him. The count asked his daughter not to mention being excluded from the register anymore. The man admitted that at that moment his soul sank into his heels. The blonde asked who his daughter took after in being so smart. The girl extended her hand and asked Kasadian to come closer, reminding him that they were now one family. Smiling, the brother sincerely thanked the girl and father. Ariane noticed that everyone had left safely and everything was going according to her plan. The starry sky hung over the luxurious mansion. Bright light was visible from the windows of the house. On a small tray lay several towels and a glass of wine. Drops of hot water slowly trickled from the tap. The blonde took off his clothes and went into the hot tub. The boy's body was covered with many scars. Kasadin played his older sister's words in his head. The muscular body soon sank into the hot, relaxing water. The blonde couldn't stop thinking about the girl's oddities. The blonde realized that he had made an impulsive decision. The guy was very curious to see the lady angry. He understood that he had behaved like an unreasonable child. Kasadin knew the countess was a good person, but that shouldn't stop him from achieving his goal. The blonde planned to use the girl. He didn't care what the future said. Ariane walked through a huge market. A vendor greeted her ladyship. The girl thought about giving Kasadin a gift, in honor of becoming part of their family. The healer's gaze was drawn to an unusual sword. The blonde took the blade in her hands and carefully examined the goods. The brunette noticed that the lady had a keen eye and excellent taste. The merchant told him that this sword had a real history. The man assured that the weapon was used by the crown prince of the ruling kingdom of Hiran. The girl suspected the merchant of lying, because such a famous sword would not have been sold and would not have been gathering dust on the display case. The brunette leaned over the customer's ear and told her the price. The blonde understood why no one had bought the weapon. The healer handed the merchant a bag of coins without hesitation. In the evening, the girl told her brother that she had a gift. She hesitantly knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Ariane entered the room, trying to find her younger brother. Kasadin was a little surprised when the countess entered his room. He was wearing only a light robe on his muscular body. The blonde apologized for barging in without permission. She explained that she was worried because he didn't answer. The guy insisted that he was in the bathroom and therefore could not hear. Having handed the box, the girl asked her brother to open the gift. He asked the healer where she got this luxurious dagger. Ariane claimed that the weapon was sold in a shop nearby. The girl said that the merchant assured her that there was no sheath for this weapon. Kasadin explained that the weapon must have a sheath. The countess looked at the guy in surprise and asked how he knew that. The brother told the girl that usually such daggers always come with a sheath. The guy was convinced that such a good product should come with a set. The blonde explained that according to the seller, the scabbard had been lost long ago. Ariane said that the seller allegedly claimed that the sword had been used by the crown prince of some kingdom. The healer extended her hand to the guy and asked if she should order a new sheath. Kasadin assured that it was not necessary, since in the gladiator arena he dealt with different types of weapons, and it was not a problem. Smiling, the guy explained to his sister that he was very happy with this gift. The countess welcomed the former slave as a new member of her family. The blonde noticed that she was too kind to him. Kasadin was sure that he was very lucky to have met such a humane man. The brother explained to the girl that if it weren't for her help, he would have continued fighting in the arena. Taking the healer by the shoulders, Kasadin said that he did not want to lose this warmth anymore. Holding the girl tightly to himself, the brother explained that he had only seen one person at the stadium, her. The former gladiator said that the blonde was an angel who had descended from heaven to him. Ariane explained to the guy that she was grateful to him for becoming part of her family. The girl told Kasadin that usually sisters and brothers do not hug so tightly. The blonde admitted that he couldn't remember the last time he felt something like this, and asked for forgiveness. Taking the guy by the hand, the blonde explained that if he was having a hard time, he could always rely on her. The healer understood that she looked very stupid in his eyes. The blonde hoped that her brother would continue to think of her as a sweet and silly girl. Ariane promised that if he couldn't sleep, she would sing him a lullaby. The countess suggested going to the garden the next day and admiring the flowers. Ariane suggested her brother to fill the following days with only happy moments. The healer hoped that as slowly as paint dissolves in water, it would dissolve in it without a trace. Kassadin asked his older sister if he could come into her room. With a tight smile, the girl promised to hold his hand until he fell asleep. The blonde smiled slightly and asked if ordinary brothers and sisters did the same. The healer suggested that they be unusual brother and sister. Ariane didn't know how this strange game on the edge would end. Lying in the girl's soft bed, the brother asked why she wanted to accept him so much that she even decided to exclude him from the registry. The blonde reminded him that she had promised him. Noticing the surprise on the guy's face, the healer explained that he himself said that even if she left him, he would not hate her. Ariane assured that she would not leave him. The blonde explained that, first of all, she didn't want to see his tears and hear his pleas not to leave. The girl said that she just wanted to make the young man happy. Gently adjusting her hair, the former slave said that he had already become the happiest. When the healer closed her eyes, she could not help but feel his persistent, scrutinizing gaze. But she tried to relax and sleep. The countess wanted to lower Kassadin's guard. That night, as in the following ones, Damien appeared in Ariane's dreams. When the blonde opened her eyes, she felt lousy. Ariane looked around and realized that her younger brother had already gone to his room. The healer's attention was drawn to the fact that one of her books was not on the shelf. Sasha entered the room and bowed. With a smile, the brunette informed the lady that she had found out what the lady had asked for. The maid whispered that the guy's past was very strange and mysterious. Sasha suggested that the guy might not be a slave at all. The lady asked the brunette to tell her more. Sasha said that it was quite difficult for her, but she still managed to find the slave trader, who had stumbled upon Kassadin several years ago. The man came across the blonde man lying unconscious on the road. The blonde man's clothes were quite expensive, so the slave trader assumed he was of noble origin. The slave trader remembered the guy well, since that meeting was a surprise for him. The brown-haired man even remembered perfectly the place where he found that guy. The blonde doubted that Kassadin was lying. The countess knew very well that manners were hard to learn, but aristocrats lived side by side with etiquette from birth. The girl understood that she should be more attentive to her ward. Ariane praised the maid and reached for a small box. The healer took out a luxurious decoration from there and asked the maid to accept this gift. The embarrassed brunette turned to the milady. Ariane asked if these gems were not enough. The blonde said that she could give more if necessary. Sasha explained that she did not do this for the reward. The maid assured that it was enough for her that she could help her mistress in some way. The brunette noticed that the maid had not been herself lately. The maid asked for forgiveness and explained that she herself did not know what she had said. Sasha asked the girl to forget what she had said. The aristocrat explained that she had been very tired lately, so she understood what she was talking about. Ariane asked the brunette if she was very worried about her. The girl asked the maid to have a good rest that day. The blonde said that she sincerely hoped that the girl would accept the gift of jewelry. The healer reported that her hands were numb and asked Sasha to take the reward and go and rest. The blonde realized that after death and returning to the past, most of the events remained unchanged. But she noticed Sasha for the first time. With tears of happiness in her eyes, the maid hugged the jewelry box. Ariane understood that if she had had a loyal maid at that time, everything could have turned out completely differently. To his great regret, Damien did not allow the girl to bring his servants. The healer was like a bird in a cage. The blonde remembered with pain in her heart that the Duke only gave her attention when he needed her strength. Because she was an abandoned bride, she became the perfect prey for bullying. The Countess tried to remember the expression on her face when she first met Damien. Ariane showed her brother the luxurious garden of their estate. The blonde asked the guy if he liked walking along the numerous paths of the garden. Kassadin was amazed by the beauty of this wonderful place. Taking one of the flowers, the boy explained that the blue roses were like his sister. The Countess looked at her brother in bewilderment and asked why he compared her to this flower. The boy explained that, unlike red roses, blue ones were very rare. The blonde explained that in the language of flowers, blue roses meant impossibility, as these flowers were quite difficult to grow. The brother admitted that he had never seen them before. Cassadine was amazed by the beauty of the blue roses and could not take his eyes off them. The boy explained that because of this, the roses were very similar to his sister. A barely noticeable smile appeared on the girl's face. The healer explained that even the most beautiful flowers in the world were doomed to fade. The blonde asked if there was any point in their fleeting rarity. Ariani explained that the moment the petals began to fall, the gardener would cut them off. Handing the flower to his sister, the blonde explained that "Must me The healer explained that not all people were happy to be compared to flowers. Cassadine promised to remember that. The countess reported that a book had disappeared from her shelf. She asked her brother if he had taken the book. The girl smiled and suggested that someone could have stolen her, even though she was not important to her. Ariani asked the young man if he remembered the book he had seen last time. The girl reminded him that it was about northern plants. Putting his hand on his heart, the brother assured her that he could help find it. The blonde looked at the guy with caution, because she realized that while she was sleeping, only Cassadine could have taken her. The girl understood that from the very first meeting, he hid his personal behind a mask. The countess understood that all this was false and a lie. The healer couldn't understand why the crown prince treated such a person well. Ariani enjoyed the peaceful breeze as the quiet days passed. Fortunately for the girl, her father officially accepted Cassadine into the family in exchange for her hiding the guy's origins in every possible way. When the sister was with Cassadine at the market, everyone was sure that the guy really was the son of an aristocrat. The blonde rejoiced that no one would think that he was a former slave. Trying to satisfy her curiosity, Ariani asked who the boy's parents were. The blonde said that his father was very polite and his mother was famous for her strength. The former slave assured that his parents were very good people. The boy assured that he had no brothers or sisters. Cassadine said that he enjoyed walking with his sister. The healer asked the boy if he needed anything else. The blonde said that he had no need and that he was still eager to accompany her. The countess announced that in a week, there would be a reception in honor of the crown prince's birthday. Noticing the confusion in Cassadine's eyes, she explained that their family was invited to the imperial palace every year, but that this time, due to business, her father would not be able to go. Smiling, the brother asked the healer to take him with her. Arian hesitated a little, explaining that there would be many strangers in the palace. The blonde admitted that he was afraid that someone might kidnap his sister. The girl calmly said that she was going to take her brother with her anyway. Ariani assured him that there was no point in kidnapping her. Her brother assured the blonde that she simply had no idea how charming she was. The blonde told Cassadine that she would give him everything he wanted, and that there was no need to continue testing her for lice. The boy asked his sister how he could not believe her. The blonde explained that it was the first time he felt such warmth in his soul. The brother suggested that this warmth came from the fact that he really liked her. The healer asked why he stole her things. The girl reminded him that a book had disappeared 3 weeks ago. Ariani said that she knew that he had taken it and put it back. Cassadine claimed he had not stolen the book. The countess recalled that he had slept in her room that night. The girl was amazed that despite everything, her brother claimed his innocence. Irina assumed that he had his own reasons for doing so. The healer said that it didn't matter to her that he stole the book, but that her younger brother lied to her. Cassadine asked why she hadn't pointed it out to him right away. Taking his hand, the blonde explained that they were now one family. Holding his sister's hand tightly, the blonde admitted that she was a ray of light in the endless darkness. The brother assured her that he would never dare lie to her again. Aaron explained that he could take any book or ask her to find it. The guy thanked his sister for her care and kindness. Cassadine admitted he was curious about what books she read. The brother realized he should have told the truth from the start. The girl asked if he liked anything on the way. The blonde asked the guy to tell her if he wanted to buy something. Embarrassed, Cassadine said he had a wish. The blonde said he wanted his sister. She forced a friendly smile onto her face, realizing that she had been waiting in vain for an adequate answer from her brother. The girl became wary because after that day, the blonde did not visit her room for some time. Ariane was reading the latest news in the newspaper. One of the pages reported that Archduke Damien had won the imperial fencing competition. The healer was sure that even with such a weak body, the brunette had won the competition. Ariane realized that the monster would always remain a monster. She was sure that no one knew about Damien's heart condition. In her past life, the blonde followed him around for a whole year, but only found out about the illness when the Duke lost consciousness. The healer's thoughts were interrupted by an insistent knock on the door. Kasadin informed his sister that it was he who had arrived. The blonde asked the guy to come in. Ariane asked her brother why he hadn't visited her lately. Smiling, the brother asked if she had been expecting his visit. The girl admitted that she sometimes thought about him. The blonde said that he was glad that he was not indifferent to her. The healer remembered that he couldn't sleep and assumed that he was now used to the change of scenery. Cassadine told his sister that being near her was much more important to him. The girl remembered that her brother would go home at dawn anyway. The blonde lay down next to her on the soft bed. The guy explained that if others found out about this, they might have problems. He insisted that this was the only reason he left. Ariane claimed that if he really didn't want problems, he wouldn't have come to her at night. Cassadine explained that she was beautiful in the sunlight, but no less beautiful in the dark of night. And he admitted that he liked to look into her deep sky-blue eyes, catching the reflections of the moon in her hair. Ariane explained that she also thought about a lot of things when she looked into his amethyst eyes, especially when he wrinkled his forehead, looking into the void. The blonde explained that she was always interested in what he was thinking about at such moments. Extending his massive palm to her face, the guy assured her that he was thinking only about her. The healer, ignoring the flattering words, recoiled from him, explaining that a few days ago, the maid had seen him leaving the estate in the middle of the night. The girl asked her brother what he was doing outside. The blonde assured her that he had gone out to get some fresh air. The countess kept silent about Sasha telling her that her brother had returned at dawn. At night, the full moon dissolved into twilight and was replaced by dawn. The brunette, choosing a luxurious dress, asked for hairpins to be brought urgently. Soon the robes and jewelry were put on. The maids were delighted with the beauty of Milady. The brunette assured that Her Highness would definitely become the main star at this reception. Sasha admitted that she envied her ladyship's dance partner. The maid asked if Ariane liked her dress. After the compliments, a barely noticeable smile appeared on Ariane's face. The girl knew perfectly well that most of the attention would fall on her younger brother. When the blonde entered the room, he joked that for a second he thought he saw an angel. Soon, the luxurious carriage stood at the gates of the estate. The maids wished the Duchess a cheerful reception. Cassadine stood by the carriage and extended his hand to his sister, wanting to help. The girl hesitantly extended her hand, touching his rough palm. Ariane told the blonde that the seat opposite her was free. The blonde said that he could let go of her hand now. The guy admitted that he wanted to spend some time with her. Putting his head on the Duchess, the brother noticed that she smelled very nice. The blonde dreamed that time would stop for a while. Cassadine was sure that everyone at the party would be devouring his sister with their eyes. The guy assumed that he would get angry because of this. The Duchess ordered her brother to stop these jokes. The healer asked why he behaved in such an inappropriate manner. Ariane reminded him that he was her younger brother. The blonde said that she was genuinely interested in why he lied here. The girl said that she knew that he would hardly admit what the reason was, and said that she wanted to know it anyway. Smiling, the blonde asked if her brother would consider this greed on her part. Outside the window, one could see fields where peasants were actively reaping wheat with huge sickles, and children of commoners were playing in the dense thickets. The guy was furious that Ariane didn't believe him. The blonde assured him that it wasn't so. She noticed that when he lied, the corners of his lips turned up, and his eyelashes trembled slightly. Smiling, Ariane explained that the young man was not at all good at lying. The blonde asked his sister who she really was. Soon the outlines of the luxurious imperial palace began to appear outside the window. He looked out the window, and the healer said that they had already arrived. The girl remembered that she had often been to these places, especially in her childhood. She knew that the county lands were so close to the imperial palace that in case of danger, they could come to the rescue as quickly as possible. Because of this, there were rumors among the people that she was claiming the title of crown princess. Looking out the window, the brother happily announced that they had finally reached their destination. The boy extended his hand to his sister, trying to help. Noticing his intense gaze, Ariane asked if he wanted to say anything. The blonde explained that his sister was incredibly beautiful that day. The healer explained that he was full of compliments today. Cassadine assured her that he would have appreciated it more if she had called him manly. The blonde suggested that her brother go with his version. The girl handed the envelope with the invitation to one of the knights. The guy asked who was next to the countess. The aristocrats began to discuss the handsome man, since it was the first time they saw the guy. The brown-haired man asked who the guy was. The healer claimed that he was her younger brother. Standing arm in arm with Cassadine, the blonde gazed into the luxurious hall of the estate. A hall full of crystal statues opened up before the guests' eyes. Ariane looked around and realized that everything remained as it had been many years ago. The girl knew that Damien would be late for the appointment that day. The blonde understood that there was only one difference from the past. The healer's thoughts were interrupted by the guy's gentle voice. Cassadine asked his sister what she was thinking about. The girl with fiery red hair approached Lady Kirkia with a smile. Christine bowed and said that it was an honor for her that the Countess remembered her. Ivalil Christine was a lady from the family of Count Christine, who had become rich in diamond mining. With a shudder in her heart, the healer realized that over 100 slaves had died in the mines. Ariane realized that she was the one who started the rumors that her family had a hidden mine. The blonde understood that Ivalil had done this because the Countess had precious stones, which she did not have. Embarrassed, Ivalil asked the blonde, who was next to her. Cassadine bowed with a friendly smile and introduced himself. The healer informed him that the boy was her younger brother. The girl understood that the aristocrats could start laughing among themselves, like a pack of dogs that had surrounded their prey. Embarrassed, the blonde said that she didn't know that Count Circe had a son. Unable to bear it, the girl expressed her dissatisfaction, since she was sure that the reason why the guy did not appear in society was that the Countess wanted to keep him only for herself. Ariane didn't want to waste your soul energy on this chaos. The ladies began to discuss how such a great man could be hidden. Ivalil asked if Mr. Cassadine had a lover. The brunette said that she wanted to ask about it first. The girl suggested that the blonde invite him to her house. The guy lowered his eyes and said that he had no beloved, but there was already one person in his heart. Without trying to contain her curiosity, the Duchess asked who the lucky woman was. The blonde's eyes glittered as if they were made of amethysts. Cassadine explained that she was wearing a luxurious blue dress and a necklace of blue sapphires on her neck when they first met. The blonde admitted that he couldn't take his eyes off her. The guy explained that she was so beautiful that it seemed a sin to take his eyes off her. Cassadine said that from then on, his heart belonged entirely to this girl, and there was no room for others. Panic flashed in Ariane's eyes. The girls asked the handsome man what the lucky girl's last name was. The host suggested greeting His Highness the Prince, the little son of the Empire. When the guy walked along the luxurious burgundy carpet, all the aristocrats bowed their heads. Leon de Cresaville. The prince, sitting on the throne, thanked everyone who came despite their busy schedules. Ariane remembered that the prince was originally supposed to take Cassadine as his confidant. She realized that this was the best choice to protect her family. The girl tried to stop feeling guilty. The blonde asked the guests to forget their problems on this wonderful day and enjoy themselves. The aristocrats raised their glasses filled with expensive wine and congratulated His Highness. The blonde noticed that there was madness in her brother's eyes, and his expression was strange. The healer tried to understand what was happening. Soon, Leon dropped his glass, covering his mouth with a pale hand. The blonde fell from the luxurious throne, unconscious. The aristocrats and guards quickly ran up to His Highness. Leon's face showed pain. The brown-haired man realized that someone had poured poison into the prince's glass. The healer froze, realizing that in his past life, there was no such thing as the blonde losing consciousness. The girl clearly remembered how they were at the reception until the very night, and Damien came late. The healer looked at her younger brother with horror. Ariane could not understand the motive, since he had been the prince's most loyal servant in his past life. The healer assumed that the boy was the prince of the kingdom of Heron, which had completely disappeared from the maps. The girl understood that this was the only explanation for what had happened. The blonde couldn't understand why in his past life, Her brother had been Leon's confidant for 3 years. Ariane assumed that this was a brilliant plan for revenge. The girl could understand it, because she had also hidden her feelings for a long time. Gently touching her brother's hand, Ariane asked if he was the prince of the kingdom of Hairan. Looking at the healer with panic, the guy asked what she had said a moment ago. The knight angrily announced that no one would be allowed to leave the place until the investigation was completed. Brown-haired standing at the door, explained that this was an order from the emperor, since the criminal could have been at the banquet. The man warned that if anyone behaved suspiciously or tried to force their way outside, that person would immediately be considered a criminal. One of the aristocrats asked in surprise if there could be a criminal among them. The brown-haired man asked who dared to do such a thing on the prince's birthday. The man said he was ready to swear on his title that he did not do it. The knight Pomraknev said that all the details would be revealed after the investigation. Ariane held her brother's hand tightly. She knew he was shaking, and not out of fear, but out of rage towards her. With a heavy sigh, the blonde told her brother that everything was fine and asked him not to do it again. The healer explained that she said this for his sake and promised to protect him. The knight informed Countess Serkia that His Highness the Emperor was asking her to come into the hall. The blonde said that she understood. The girl realized that rumors would start again that she would become the future empress. Kassadin looked sadly after his sister with sympathy. Bowing, the blonde greeted the shining son of the empire. The emperor ordered the girl to heal his son as quickly as possible. Looking at the prince, Ariane realized that the poison had already spread throughout his body. Hanging over the blonde, the girl realized that the poison had neither color nor smell. The healer touched the boy's wrist and realized that the poison had spread throughout the blood in his body. Ariane tried to remember which of the poisonous herbs had no color and smell, but was very toxic. The blonde realized that the poisonous butterfly plant was one of those that only grew in the north. The girl realized that the book that Kassadin stole had a recipe for hiding the smell. The blonde understood that if she had not arrived in time, the prince could have remained bedridden forever. The countess realized that her brother had truly gone mad. Ariane gently touched the prince's chest and used her magic. Soon, Leon's breathing became even and deep. Raising her eyes, the girl reported that she had removed all the energy of the poison. The countess's sky-blue eyes hid the storm that raged in her soul. Leon soon came to his senses, but his father reported that he felt relieved. The emperor promised to thank the healer. The man said that she could have asked for anything in return for the help she had provided. The blonde explained that she had only done what she had to. The emperor, alarmed, asked who dared to do such a thing on Leon's birthday. He assumed that the criminal must have really wanted to die. The healer reported that she had discovered the ingredients of the poison that had been used to poison the prince. Ariane knew that she could use the emperor's trust to her advantage. The countess asked for forgiveness and hesitated a little. His Highness said that everything was fine and asked the healer to tell her. Ariane looked up and said that the main ingredient was a poisonous butterfly plant that only grew in the north. She knew that the only way to save Kassadin was to shift the blame to someone else. The girl knew that the emperor's younger brother was the ruler of the north. Ariane knew that Damien was the only child he left behind. The blonde explained that the poisonous butterfly plant was very toxic, that it could only be identified by its smell, but if mixed with jade powder, the smell would disappear. The healer knew that this would be enough to sow suspicion. Ariane learned that the brunette's father was interested in the throne, but Damien was different. The girl became alarmed that even when the prince was in such a state, he never showed himself. The healer understood that even if the traitor managed to avoid accusations of poisoning, he would definitely not be able to avoid an inspection from the emperor. The blonde claimed that she would never dare lie to him. Ariane noted that her younger brother was very cute. The healer said that it was time for her to go since she had finished the procedure. The emperor stopped the lady and explained that he had one more request for her. The man asked Ariane to stay with his son until he felt better. A little taken aback, the blonde asked if he had gone somewhere. The emperor said that he could not keep all the aristocrats in the hall. A barely noticeable smile appeared on the countess's face. The girl realized that no one suspected Kassadin of the crime. The blonde bowed and said that she would fulfill the emperor's request without any problems. The blonde said that he relied on her and headed towards the exit of the luxurious room. His Highness thanked the girl again with a smile. Ariane was surprised that the emperor trusted her so much. The blonde sincerely hoped that the man did not intend to make her the prince's wife. Sitting down on a chair, which was upholstered in velvet, next to Leon's bed, the healer wondered when he would come to his senses. Ariane wondered what her brother was doing at the moment. She sincerely hoped that Kasadin wasn't causing any more trouble. A barely audible sound came from the prince's lips. The healer jumped up from her chair and asked His Highness if he could hear her. The blonde assumed that he was delirious. A bit embarrassed, Ariane began to button his snow-white shirt. The prince looked at the healer in surprise. The blonde asked the healer who she was and what she was doing. Leon was furious that she dared to touch him. Trying to be polite, Ariane explained that she was a healer from Serkia's family. The blonde explained that she had cured him of the poison in his body. The countess explained that if she had been a little late, he could have died. The guy cautiously asked her to repeat her words. Ariane assumed that the emperor had not told the prince anything. Looking at her face, the guy assured that he remembered. The prince realized that the Serki family was the only family of healers in the country. Leon realized that the one standing before him was the strongest of all the healers. The blonde asked if he could see her incredible skills. The boy extended his hand to the healer. The countess explained that she would not be able to do so, since she had already completely healed him, and there were no other victims nearby. Putting his hand on his heart, the prince said that he suddenly felt pain there. The healer quickly knelt down in front of him and squeezed his left hand tightly. The blonde asked for forgiveness and assured that everything was fine with His Highness. The girl realized that she had managed to remove all the remaining poison. The healer reported that she had found nothing and the boy's heartbeat was normal. Ariane assured the prince that he was completely healthy. The countess was surprised at how quickly the boy had recovered. The girl had the feeling that there was no poison. Smiling, the prince asked how she knew about it. Leon was convinced that the girl really was a healer. Ariane was sure that the guy was like that, despite his age, because he was bullied. Bowing, the blonde said that if she was finished with her business, she was already leaving. The prince grabbed Ariane's wrist tightly and asked her to wait a little. The guy explained that he was a little worried. He asked the girl if she could sit with him a little longer. The healer suggested that he call someone else. The blonde was surprised because the other ladies tried to flirt with him in every way, but this one tried to leave in every way. Ariane was surprised by how narcissistic the prince was. The girl was shocked because in their past life, they had never spoken. The healer explained that all people were different. She dreamed of leaving this room as soon as possible. Arena understood that she needed to say something. The countess explained that if he had only met such people, it did not mean that in the future he would also only meet such people. The girl assured that all people had different values. Taking the healer's gentle hand and looking into her sky-blue eyes, the guy asked her what she thought of him. The girl assured him that she thought he was the crown prince. Leon laughed sharply at such an unexpected answer. Wiping away the tears that had appeared in his eyes, the blonde asked if her name was Ariane. The boy asked to heal him again when he got hurt. Gently touching her hand, Leon said that she could go and promised to see her soon. The healer was very disappointed that she couldn't hit him. The girl sincerely hoped that they would never have to cross paths again. When Ariane left the prince's room for the luxurious hall, she noticed that there were only servants there. The girl wondered what happened to the people who were in the hall. Clutching the mop tightly, one of the maids told her that everyone had been allowed to leave. The blonde breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that Kassadin was okay. Ariane returned home when the night garden was filled with moonlight. The girl asked her brother where he had been. The healer noticed that he was standing in the hall and talking to some man. Smiling, the girl turned to her brother and asked how long he had to wait for her arrival. The blonde answered negatively. The healer was amazed at how cute her younger brother's face was. Ariane couldn't believe it was the same man with the murderous look. The girl froze that Kassadin was talking to the brunette. Damien gritted his teeth that he was glad to meet them. The closer the Duke got to the girl, the brighter the memories from her past became. The guy introduced himself as Damien Kindizers. The blonde was clutching a strand of her golden hair tightly. Fear was shining in the girl's sky-blue eyes. Ariane tried to calm down, because she had been preparing for this meeting from the very beginning. The Duke asked the healer with concern if everything was all right. The brunette noticed that she had turned very pale. Putting a smile on her pale face, the girl assured him that everything was fine and thanked him for his worries. Bowing, the Countess introduced herself as Arian Circia. Looking intently into the blonde's eyes, the girl asked Damien what he was talking about with her younger brother. The guy was a little taken aback when he learned that Cassidon was the girl's younger brother. The brunette noticed that they didn't look like brother and sister at all. Damien explained that he was late because of work and was about to return since the reception was cancelled. The guy claimed that he met the blonde guy by accident. Ariane said that someone poisoned the crown prince. Damien said that he had no idea that something so terrible would happen at Leon's birthday ceremony. The healer knew that inside the boy was very happy about it. The girl understood that her former fiancé did not know his place and was striving for the throne. Ariane said that she completely agreed with the Archduke. The brunette was a little taken aback, asking how she recognized him in the status. The healer explained that everyone knew about the Deiros family. The girl explained that all the articles were written about him. The blonde reminded him that he had recently won a fencing competition. Adjusting his raven-colored hair, the Duke assured him that they were simply lucky. Arian knew that Cassidon had beaten the brunette the first time he competed. The healer still remembered how out of breath the boy had been. A sincere smile appeared on the girl's face, as she vividly remembered how Damien's honor and pride were trampled on like a piece of paper. The brunette asked the lady why it was at the palace at such a time. The guy noticed that everyone else had already left long ago. The healer thought about the answer. Fortunately for the girl, massive knights approached and grabbed the Archduke by the arms. Resisting, the guy asked what you were doing. The brown-haired man sternly informed Damien that he would have to go with them. The knight explained that it was an order from His Highness. Covering her sly grin with her hands, the blonde asked how this could have happened. Putting her hand on her brother's back, Arian said that she knew very well that he had a lot to talk about with her. The blonde said that it was already quite late, and they should return to the estate. Dim kerosene lamps barely illuminated the forest path. The horse walked uncertainly along the gloomy roads of the vast forest. Looking into her brother's eyes, the healer asked why he had acted in such a way. Arian noticed that he had not told her anything at all. The girl told Cassidon that she had not accused him. The Countess understood that Cassidon's mask had been completely removed so that it could not even hide his trembling eyes. To her great regret, Arian knew that if the truth was revealed, not only the slave would suffer, but her family as well. Looking into his amethyst eyes, the girl asked if he was the prince of the kingdom of Haran, or a slave, or someone else. The healer asked him to protect his life first. Pressing the healer tightly into the chair, the blonde explained that if he killed her right there would be no one left who would know his true identity. Cassidon asked his sister if she wants to say her last words with her tender lips. The blonde ordered the girl to speak when she learned his secret. The Countess feigned sympathy and said that he was lying to himself. The brother asked the girl if she understood the situation she was in. Ariane explained that he was very stupid. The blonde said that he was trying to hurt the wrong person. I don't even know who his real enemy was. The events quickly moved forward 8 years. Halcon Dyers, Damien's real father, led the conquest of Haran. It was enough for a cruel ruler to simply destroy an entire kingdom. This was mentioned in a little-known prophecy that was composed by a prophet of the Seville Empire who has long since passed away. Ariane understood that she herself did not know this about Damien, so the blonde could not find out about it. The guy hovered over his sister and asked if she was lying to him now. The healer was surprised to hear this from someone who lied to her about everything. The blonde explained that she had always been sincere with her brother. The Countess was amazed that even at that moment he believed that she was lying to him. Having slightly loosened his grip, the former slave asked if she regretted taking him. Ariane assured that she never regretted it. The girl understood that he probably wanted her to regret her decision. The Countess understood that she could not give him the answer he was waiting for. The blonde explained that no matter what you said, he was her dear family member. The girl hugged Cassidon tightly. Ariane was amazed, because even she was not familiar with that soft and gentle voice with which she calmed her younger brother. The Countess thought it was quite funny that she was the one using Cassidon. When the blonde got to her father's estate, she realized that it was a very quiet and sad night. The lady asked Sasha to prepare a hot bath for her. She hurried to carry out the order. Arian asked the maid to find her books about the kingdom of Haran. The blonde said that she would need documents and even rumors. The healer asked the brunette to prepare all the information she could find about this long-lost kingdom. Ariani asked the maid if she wanted more precious stones. The brunette, embarrassed, said that it was not worth it. She remembered that the mistress had already given her a whole bag last time. Sasha hurriedly reported that they would immediately prepare something for the mistress in the bathroom. The healer was delighted with the girl's sweet behavior. Arian looked around and knocked on her brother's door. It opened with a surprising creak. Smiling, the girl asked if Cassidon wanted to talk before going to bed. They sat opposite each other in awkward silence. Moonlight streamed through the huge windows, picking out silhouettes from the semi-darkness. For a long time, neither dared to start a dialogue first. The blonde poured herself a cup of hot, aromatic drink and noticed that the tea leaves that helplessly stretched downwards or the sea waves that calm like a lie at a certain moment. Erin lowered her eyes and said that the pain that seemed incurable and all the things that made the guy suffer would definitely end one day. The healer understood that her brother was ready to go to the bottom at any moment, but she also had many contradictions. The girl realized that she shouldn't have mentioned it, because she also kept silent about her obsession with the past, named Damien. The healer jumped up abruptly and gently touched her brother's shoulder. The blonde explained that the boy shouldn't worry. Arian remembered that, as usual, she would not do anything even if he lied to her once again. Leaning over her brother's ear, the healer whispered so that he would not forget that despite his past, she was now his family. The girl told Cassidine that he could always use her. The blonde explained that if he wanted to order something, she was ready to even stain her hands with blood to fulfill it. The guy suddenly jumped up from his seat and asked his sister what she was thinking about. The blonde asked again if she understood what she was talking about. Cassidine explained that he would understand if she began to insult him as an ungrateful slave who dared to do so and forgot her gratitude. The brother asked her why she didn't accuse. Cassidine explained that there was no guarantee that he wouldn't do it again. The countess explained that if he had really wanted to hurt her, he would have done it already. The healer realized that for people who had to become creatures in order to survive, it was completely normal to be only on their own side. Arian understood that the month she dedicated to him had not passed. The blonde noticed that her brother was becoming more and more like her. Sharply grabbing him by the shoulders, the countess reminded him that he had done exactly the same thing as she had. The girl reminded him that it was she who had found him and accepted him into the family. The blonde said that it was her fault. Arian said that she treated his wounds while continuing to tear them apart. Smiling, the sister asked Cassidine to forgive her. The blonde was surprised that her brother left so quickly. Soon the boy sat down on his soft bed and thought. All this time his chest was squeezed by some unpleasant feeling. The boy realized that the girl had the look of a nun with a broad outlook on life. Cassidine realized that his sister did not have the appearance of being thoughtful or sad. The blonde realized that Arian had to give up a lot. Looking in the mirror, the guy realized that a beautiful appearance was poison for a slave. The blonde understood that people didn't care if he was wounded or bleeding. They were only interested in his strong, beautiful body. Cassidine had worked so hard to hide his past life in order to survive that he couldn't afford to despair. The blonde couldn't understand why he doubted himself at that moment. The guy understood that there were many things that he did not understand. His head was filled with different thoughts and emotions. Cassidine was surprised that he felt a strange sense of security around such a suspicious girl. The guy was overwhelmed with a sense of defeat. Throwing a robe over his business, the blonde adjusted his luxurious silver hair. He knocked insistently on the door, addressing his sister. The guy told the Aryans that he wanted to know more about her. The brother explained that he wanted to apologize and hear her voice. Cassidine said that recently his body temperature rose. The healer asked him with concern if it hurt. He put his hand on his heart to the blonde and explained that the temperature was getting higher. Cassidine asked his sister what was happening to his body. He looked lovingly at the one he was ready to kill a couple of hours ago. The blonde was delighted by the beauty of the girl. The guy said that the beauty of the healer blinded his eyes every time, and her hands were very gentle, soft, and warm. Ariani jerked away from him and was shocked to see that the large scar on his arm was a burn. The blonde jerked away from his sister, looking at her in surprise. The girl noticed that she had many marks from knives and axes. One of them was from prolonged malnutrition. The countess explained that even on a gladiator, artificial marks are immediately visible. The girl assured that some of them did not appear during the battle. Arian asked if he was tortured. There was only bewilderment on the brother's face. The healer asked to confirm her assumption. The girl asked the guy to sit down for a while. The blonde covered her amethyst eyes with her delicate, graceful hand. A few moments later, the healer used her magic. Bright rays filled the gloomy room. The blonde said she was ready and opened her eyes. The guy looked at his body with confusion. Surprise was visible in Kassadin's eyes. The sister said that she used the ointment that she told about last time. Smiling, the girl said that if she had known, she would have cured him right then. The healer was surprised that despite all his pain, he couldn't say anything about it. The blonde asked for forgiveness, explaining that she understood how hard it was for him. She gently touched his hand, calling him her beloved younger brother. The countess informed him that he could not worry and go to bed. Sitting by her bed, Kassadin realized that he was the one trapped. The brunette burst into the room out of breath, announcing that the lady needed to get ready as soon as possible. The lady was calmly combing her luxurious golden hair and asked what all the fuss was about since the morning. With shining eyes, Sasha reported that His Highness the Prince had arrived at the estates. The blonde asked why he had come. The maid shrugged and said that he had said that he wanted to see her in person. The brunette explained that he was waiting for Arian in the living room. The brunette offered the lady to comb her hair. Arian hesitated a little and asked if he had said anything else. The healer reassured herself that the prince had not discovered that Kassadin was guilty of attempted murder. The maid assumed that His Highness had fallen in love with his mistress at first sight. Sasha explained that despite the horror that had happened, he had come to see her that evening. A bit embarrassed, Ariani doubted her personal maid's assumptions. The blonde's face showed no emotion. The healer was sure that he had come out of curiosity even after what had happened. The girl assumed that the prince had nothing to do. Arian admired the patience of Kassadin, who served the ruler for many years. The brunette reported that the entire empire was upside down. The girl reported that the suspect in the attempted murder was Archduke Damien. Sasha explained that he was in the imperial dungeon. The maid could not understand what the brunette was missing if he went for something like that. The girl explained that there was no exact evidence, so the Archduke could be released soon. The healer understood that yesterday's evidence was not entirely logical. The girl realized that the Damien she knew would be able to get out of this situation even if he was truly guilty. Arian knew that her ex-lover, when he gets out of prison, will try to find the real criminal. The countess assumed that if he found out the truth, he would force Kassadin to join him. The blonde understood that she would have to meet him on her side and resolve everything. To her regret, Ariane could not find any more evidence of Damien's guilt. The girl planned to create a dramatic meeting. Interrupting the mistress's thoughts, the brunette asked when she wanted to get dressed. Ariane explained that she wanted to dress in luxury. The countess met her brother and asked her where she was going in such a hurry. The girl, without slowing down, explained that a man was waiting for her in the living room. Kassadin asked if he could follow her. A little embarrassed, the blonde explained that it would be inconvenient. The brother asked Arian why she was against it. The healer understood that the blonde was an interested party who tried to poison the prince. Smiling, the guy assumed that the guest was very important. Arian understood that the beast, who had failed to carry out his manipulations, was no longer afraid to show everything real. The blonde couldn't understand why this made her so happy. Kassadin remained standing there, completely confused. Leon greeted the girl with a radiant smile. The prince said that he almost died of boredom while waiting for her. The healer understood that he had recently almost died for real. Bowing, Arian asked for forgiveness for being late and greeted the small son of the empire. The blonde explained that there was no need to act so formally, reminding her that it was not the first time they had met. The girl could not understand why he was pretending to be so friendly. Ariane reminded herself that she needed a prince to meet Damien. The blonde tried not to lose her composure. The little son of the empire assumed that the countess was interested in his early visit. Without hesitation, the blonde decided to say everything directly. Extending his hand, Leon offered the countess to be his wife. Smiling, the prince assured that his father also agreed with him. The boy said that he was truly grateful that the healer saved his life. The blonde asked if it was true that the girl's family had accumulated their fortune through mining. Leon reminded the girl that a family of healers who receive protection from the imperial family cannot afford much. because of the written rules. The blonde explained to the girl that His Highness was also worried about this. Arian said that she felt very awkward about such a sudden proposal. The healer said that she had enough of everything in her life. The guy couldn't believe that she was ready to miss the chance to become a noble bride of the Empire. The blonde sincerely thanked him for such warm words and explained that she needed feelings. Smiling, Leon reported that the healer was not at all what he expected. The guy told the lady that she was a very interesting person. The door creaked behind the countess. The girl couldn't understand who dared to enter without knocking. Piercing the intruder with his amethyst eyes to the depths of his soul, Cassadine apologized for interrupting the conversation. Cold beads of sweat began to slowly flow down the blonde's face. The countess realized that despite the fact that the guy's face did not reveal his emotions, he was really apologizing. The blonde explained that he had brought them cookies because he assumed they would be very hungry. The girl assumed that her brother had taken the treats from Sasha. The prince thanked the guy for his concern, saying that he could leave here. The blonde moved from his place, rolling his eyes. His Highness repeated once again that he could go free. Arian asked for forgiveness and explained that he was her younger brother. The second son of the Empire noted that they were not at all similar because one had silver hair and the other had golden hair. The guy noticed that their eyes were completely different colors. Leon grinned and assumed that they were not of the same blood. The healer explained that even though they were not related, he was still her only younger brother. The prince noticed that the boy was too handsome to be considered just a younger brother. The blonde understood why the girl was so demanding. Ariani said that her brother was right. He was very handsome. Leon laughed and wished that this handsome younger brother would leave the room and not interfere with the conversation. The second of the Empire reported that they were discussing very important things. Kassadin asked why he was not allowed to listen to their conversation. The blonde said that if he wanted it so much, he could say. The prince grinned and said that the guy's sister would soon become his wife. Ariani got angry and reminded him that she had refused him. Leon explained that if she wanted to refuse his offer so much, then she would have to come to the palace in person. The blonde explained that he would be waiting for her at the palace fountain the following morning. The guy asked his beloved to come alone. The brother asked Ariani if the prince had told the truth. The countess said that it was not a lie. The blonde frowned and asked if she would go to the castle tomorrow. The girl lowered her eyes and said that she would have to do it. Cassadine warned the blonde that she better not do it. After her questioning look, the guy warned that it could be a trap. The blonde explained that because the principal asked the girl to come alone, he felt uncomfortable. The brother explained to the Aryans that he did not like Leon's face. Smiling, the countess asked again if he could understand people by their faces. The blonde man became wary and said that he could understand people by their eyes. Kassadin warned that the second son of the Empire seemed to him a bad person. The healer said that she completely agreed with him. Arian explained that she also did not like the prince at first sight. Hope appeared in the amethyst eyes. The former gladiator asked his sister if their opinions coincided. The girl said that she didn't like the character of the second son of the Empire at all. The healer was very pleased to chat about the crown prince behind his back. The dark-eyed guy asked his beloved what she thought about him at their first meeting. Ariani noticed that the handsome man was very similar to her. The girl could not rationally explain her feelings. The countess was very attracted by his eyes, behind which a great story was hidden. Sadness, like the light of dawn, and complete emptiness. Ariani asked her brother what he thought of her when they first met. The guy rolled his eyes and said that it was a secret. The girl knew that she shouldn't expect an answer from a liar. Ariani asked him if he thought she was a good person or a bad person. The blonde said he didn't know. The healer reminded him that a few moments ago he said that he could distinguish people by their eyes. Lightly pinching his shoulder, the girl asked what kind of person he thought she was. The blonde quickly slapped her hand, trying to stop her from hurting him. Cassadine apologized, explaining that she had done it by accident. The guy asked his sister if she hated him for a long time. A little taken aback, the healer asked why she should hate him. Cassadine explained that she was a very strange person, not good and not bad. The countess was surprised that for the first time in a long time, he gave her an honest answer. The guy was very embarrassed, and his face was covered with a noticeable blush. Ariani asked why her brother's face had turned red. The healer noted that his temperature had not gone down since last night. Kassadin told his sister that it was because of her, but after a few seconds, he asked her to forget it. Taking another book from the huge library, Arian wondered how real brothers and sisters feel. The girl took another book and couldn't understand why there was no information about the kingdom of Haran. The Countess couldn't understand when her brother managed to get into the library. The girl reminded herself that her brother would not have left any traces of breaking into the imperial castle. The blonde became wary and realized that there was another problem. She didn't know how to treat Damien when they met. The Countess dreamed of exposing all of Damien's actions and bringing him to the very bottom. The girl was determined to act like an idiot. She understood Kassadin's feelings because she still couldn't forget the pain of the day she died. Clutching his pocket watch in his hand, the prince noticed that his beloved had already arrived. Ariani bowed in reverence and greeted the small son of the empire. The girl was wearing a blood-red dress with black ruffles, which sat perfectly on her figure. The healer told the guy that she came to this meeting to refuse his offer. Leon asked his beloved not to rush so much. The guy extended his hand to the girl and suggested that they sit down and talk. Noticing that the prince was nervous, the girl said that he could calm down. She explained that she had not brought anyone with her. Smiling, the blonde noted that Arian was quite smart and had the power of healing. The Countess interrupted his speech, warning that someone could overhear them. Smiling, Leon said that if she was so worried about this, she could become his wife at that very moment. The blonde noticed that he didn't love her. The girl reminded him that she was a healer, not a toy. The guy grinned and asked if love was necessary for marriage. The blonde reminded her that marriage was in the interests of both parties. Leon explained to her that she was missing out on the chance to have the highest status in the empire, and the imperial family would get a powerful healer. The guy suggested that it was a good deal for both parties. Ariani gritted her teeth and said that she was quite happy with her current status. The blonde said that if he didn't mind, she had a request. The healer said that the Archduke Damien was guilty of the attempted poisoning. The girl reported that, according to rumors, he was in the imperial dungeon. Arian, noticeably gloomy, asked if she could meet the defendant. The wary prince asked his beloved why he wanted to meet the criminal so much. The girl explained that if he allowed it, she could show him her driving skills. The small son of the empire reminded her that she could not use her abilities if the person was not injured. Arian chuckled and asked if she had ever claimed that she could only use her skills on people. The Countess said that she could make the flowers he had stepped on bloom again. Leon looked at his beloved in surprise and looked at the plant with its petals falling off. The blonde approached the plant and touched her hands to the delicate sea-green petals. The flower quickly began to raise its peduncles and leaves to the bright rays of the sun. Looking at her abilities, the guy couldn't believe his eyes. The blonde asked the healer how she could do this. Leon assumed that the girl was a mage. Ariane refuted his suspicions, saying that she was just a healer. The boy plucked the flower with a deft movement of his hand. The healer's face showed bewilderment. The blonde said that if the flower remained here, someone could step on them. Leon promised to put the plant in his room. The boy told the Countess that he had only one question left. He asked the girl why she needed the Archduke. Leon said that he was curious why the girl decided to take such a step in order to meet him. The blonde assumed that His Highness would ask about it. The girl understood that it would be very suspicious to confess her love to a man accused of cheating. Wiping away her tears, the blonde said that she wanted to see the Archduke one last time. Ariani realized that it would look even stranger, considering that the prince was proposing to marry her. The guy asked the healer why she didn't answer. The Countess was amazed that his patience limit was only a few seconds. The girl asked the prince if he considered Damien a criminal. Leon explained that the brunette lacked the motivation to act in such a way. The prince explained that there was no exact proof. The blonde was sure that it was done by someone who had a long-standing grudge against the imperial family. Ariani asked if the Archduke was accused only because he arrived late to the reception and because this plant only blooms in the north. We will see the prince's wariness. The healer explained that she found out what kind of poison he was poisoned with while she was treating him. The girl said that she felt guilty because the Archduke was accused of her word, that the plant only brought down in the north. The blonde explained that she would like to see him chew in prison. Leon was surprised when he asked the healer why she thought it was her fault. The guy asked how the truth could be a crime. The Countess explained that the truth could sometimes turn out to be a lie for someone. Extending his hand to her, the prince said that he wanted to personally escort her to the dungeon. The blonde rejoiced that her plan had worked out perfectly. One of the knights was watching the couple in love. Turning around, Ariane couldn't understand why the knight was wearing an iron helmet in such warm weather. The blonde was sure that the guy was very hot. A flock of scavengers circled around a huge stone tower that served as a dungeon. Walking through the long, dark corridors, the healer asked if this tower was a dungeon. The boy was surprised that Ariane had never been here. Leon explained that the imperial dungeons were usually located away from the main castle complex. The blonde turned around abruptly and asked the knight why he continued to follow them. Through the massive helmet, Ariane saw amethyst eyes. The prince asked if the emperor had ordered him to watch them and report everything he did. The blonde couldn't understand why he had to put in so much effort. Leon asked his beloved if she knew why he had asked her to come alone. The prince admitted that the eyes of Lady Ariane's brother seemed very disturbing to him. The healer understood perfectly well that Cassadine was irritated by the failure of his assassination attempt. The countess assured him that her brother was very shy. The blonde reported that he noticed something strange in the amethyst eyes when his younger brother looked at her. Leon thoughtfully reported that it was not like a brother looking at his sister. The boy explained that despite the fact that the shadows were connected by blood, interrupting the prince, the healers reported that Cassadine was a very dear member of her family. Ariane reported that he put her in a difficult position when he spoke in such a light about her only younger brother. The blonde was amazed at how attached the girl was to her brother. Smiling, the healer assured him that he was the most important person in the world for her. The countess informed His Highness that it was enough for her that he had led her to this place. The guy was a little taken aback when he learned that the blonde was going to go to the dirty prison alone. Leon assured her that she did not need to exert herself so much. The healer reminded her that the Archduke had been accused of attempted murder because of her words. Ariane explained that she would not be able to speak calmly if he was nearby. Turning to the knight, His Highness asked him to come closer. The prince explained that he would not be able to take Milady directly to the Archduke. Leon warned his subject that if anything happened, he would bear full responsibility. The blonde asked the guy his name and what squad he was from. Trying to fix this situation, Ariane assured him that she would talk to the criminal quickly and return. The blonde insisted that there was no need to worry so much about her safety and security. Smiling, Leon said that since the reception in honor of his 20th birthday was interrupted last time, therefore a large reception would soon be held again. The guy assured that they would be able to see each other again in the coming days, and promised to send Ariane an invitation. The blonde warned that the girl could not refuse. The prince promised to take care of the forget-me-not flower that she gave him until then. When Leon disappeared into the darkness of the long corridors, the girl asked her brother why he was in this place. A little taken aback, the knight asked if his sister had known about this from the very beginning. Smiling, the blonde asked how she could not recognize her brother. Ariane asked the guy how he was able to steal the guard's uniform. The boy insisted that he hadn't stolen it, but borrowed it. Cassadine claimed that the owner of the uniform would be unconscious for a day or so. The healer was amazed that he would talk about it as if it were a trifle. The girl asked her brother if he had thought about what might happen if he had been caught. The blonde assured her that he knew the knight's movements and their gait. The guy, hanging over his sister in massive armor, asked if she was worried about him. Smiling, the countess asked her brother how she could not worry. Ariane assured that not a day had passed that she had not worried about him from morning until night. Smiling, the guy said that he was very pleased to hear something like that. The countess asked him if he had come to the castle out of worry. Cassadine explained that if it were not true, he would not have acted so stupidly. The blonde extended his hand and asked his sister to follow him, explaining that he knew the structure of the prison very well. He clutched a massive torch tightly in one hand and his sister's gentle hand in the other. The girl smelled a strong odor of mold and dampness. Ariane was amazed at how much the prison resembled a labyrinth in its structure. Cassadine explained that it was virtually impossible to escape from this place. He said that at set times a man would come in to hand out food, and the prison system worked well, even without guards. The guy asked his sister who she came to see in such a place. Looking down, the blonde assured him that he would recognize this person when he saw her. Soon the couple arrived on the 8th floor. The rays of the sun penetrated this rotten place through the massive bars. Damien read a book, not paying attention to the guest. The girl remembered very well that she had once fallen in love with this black hair and emerald eyes. Then the healer did not know what was hidden behind such a beautiful wrapper. Approaching the bars, the healer asked the guy if he remembered her. The Archduke named the girl's name and status, saying that he could remember people even if he had only seen them once. The brunette jumped up from his seat and said that he remembered her knight very well. Smiling tensely, the blonde assured that it was only the palace knight who brought her to this place. The Archduke assumed that he had confused the guy with someone else. Smiling, the brunette asked why the knight had escorted her straight to his prison. The guy reminded that outsiders were not allowed to enter. Ariani said that the prince allowed her, and even led her to the entrance to the tower. The brunette was amazed to hear that the prince personally led Milady. The guy wondered if he could ask why it happened. Coming closer to the bars, the blonde said she was sure of Damien's innocence. Pressed against the cold bars, Ariane declared to the Archduke that she had fallen in love with him at first sight. Smiling, the guy said that he understood the lady and decided to listen to her. The blonde asked in surprise if he believed her. Damien asked the countess if she considered her behavior in such a situation suspicious. Ariane assured him that she had come to save him despite the danger of the situation. The countess burst into tears and asked why he was so cold towards her. Covering her face with her hands, the girl said that if she had known that he would speak to her like that, she would not have come here at all. The wary brunette asked again if she had really fallen in love with him at first sight. Pressing herself even closer to the bars, the girl asked why she would otherwise come to such a rotten place. Ariane admitted that she herself did not believe that such vivid feelings were possible until she met him. The blonde understood that the next step she should take was to be embarrassed and sigh at every word. Continuing her game, the girl said that she fell in love with this black hair the color of a raven's wing and eyes that outshone the radiance of the stars. The countess assured him that she was madly in love with his sharp, stubborn chin and his quiet, calm voice. The amethyst eyes of the knight behind the lady were filled with rage. Ariane was ready to endure such shame as long as it took for the sake of her goal. The girl asked if the brunette could imagine how sad she was when she found out that her lover had been arrested before she could say a word. Ariane decided to appear before him as a complete idiot who is easy to control. Embarrassed, the girl said that for this meeting she had to beg the prince, and it was very difficult. Damien looked at her warily and assumed that the lady was very friendly with His Highness. Ariane had not prepared for the conversation in vain, since the guy was interested. She remembered that in her past life, the relationship between the prince and the Archduke had been strained. Damien had specifically tried to get closer to His Highness, but the principal was not particularly keen on such treatment. Ariane knew that although the prince's proposal was a shock to her, it could also be a stumbling block. Ariane knew that if she was too friendly with him, it could arouse suspicion. The girl reassured herself that, given the prince's character, if she easily accepted his proposal, the young man would quickly lose interest in her. The blonde planned to keep Lion at a distance, fueling his interest and using his influence on Damien. The healer assured that His Highness had assigned this knight to her. The girl asked the Archduke to ask Lion personally if he did not trust her. The healer asked him to tell her in more detail why he was late for the appointment. The blonde assured him that she could talk to the prince personally and explain that the young man was innocent. Going into the depths of his cell, the guy suggested. Smiling, Damien asked the girl to explain in detail what kind of relationship she had with the prince. In return, the brunette offered to tell the reason for his lateness to the reception. The Archduke explained that he suddenly wanted to know what kind of person she was. The girl understood that it was easier for him to die than to lose. Ariane was surprised that he was talking here, as if she needed to talk about the prince in front of the Imperial Guard. The healer assumed that the brunette did not believe her at all. The girl said that she looked very stupid when she was interested in him. Turning away, Ariane said that he was making her out to be a calculating schemer, although she had come to help him. The blonde turned around and began to leave quickly. The girl was very hurt that he tried to trample her sincerity in the mud. The countess told the guy that she now understood what kind of person he was. Damien quickly ran to the bars and began to grip the iron bars tightly. The brunette supposed that he shouldn't have been so rough with her. The boy begged Ariane not to leave and promised to tell her the reason for his lateness. The Archduke explained that if she left, he would worry. Damien explained that he was preparing a special gift for the prince and a lot of time was spent preparing gifts before the reception. The guy claimed that he had a rather rare thing, and it took him a long time to deliver the gift to the duchy. Raising her sky-blue eyes, the girl asked what the gift was. The brunette said that he would tell Ariane because he wanted the prince to know about it. The guy claimed that the gift was a slave with impressive skills in history. The brunette said that he had to try hard to keep him from committing suicide. The reason for the delay was that the slave wanted to bite off his tongue. Damien, seeing the surprise on the girl's face, said that she had misunderstood him. The guy said that talented slaves were hard to find, and they were sold for a lot of money. Damien recalled that a few months ago, one of the gladiator slaves was sold for $5 billion. The healer knew very well that slaves were treated worse than cattle. The girl could not understand how it was possible to think of giving a slave to the prince for his birthday. The blonde decided to check this out, as this trick could be used to hide health problems. Ariane asked to hand over the slave to her. The girl recalled that Damien was locked up in prison only because the poisonous plant that was discovered during the investigation only grew in the north. The countess said that the flower was the main ingredient of the poison, and the guest was late for the reception. Smiling, the girl assured that she had personally discussed this situation with the prince. The brunette asked in surprise, who could have done something like that? The duke said that he had immediately found the accusation, that he was simply late for the reception. Strange. The blonde assured him that if he sent the slave, she would speak to the prince and ask him to reconsider the decision to imprison him. She believed that the slave would be direct evidence of his innocence. The girl assured that it was painful that they treated her so cautiously. Putting her hand on her heart, Ariane claimed that she could not leave the brunette in such a difficult moment. The brunette agreed to the proposal and promised to order his servant to send her a slave. The Archduke said with a sly look that he sincerely hoped to see Milady Ariane again. The blonde, shyly covering her face with her hands, asked if he had asked her out on a date. Ariane was delighted that he had swallowed the bait. The Archduke assured her that he would tell her all the details when he was released from prison. The brunette expressed hope that they would be able to come to an agreement, and she knew that Damien would not miss the opportunity to get information about the prince. The countess promised to look forward to their next meetings. The brunette said that he sincerely hoped to spend time together soon. The girl planned to use him for her own benefit. Putting a small piece of paper in front of the lady, the brown-haired woman reminded her that she had asked to find information about the kingdom of Haran. Sasha reported that she personally was unable to obtain anything, so she had to turn to an informant. Ariane worriedly assured that it was very dangerous to wander alone through dark alleys. The maid assured that she had only met one person while she was shopping. The girl claimed that thanks to his tip, she had found several people she needed. The brunette explained that this was not enough, and because of this, she came up with an idea of how to effectively use the precious stones that the lady gave her. The girl claimed that she had heard that there was a man in this place who knew a lot about the kingdom of Haran. Ariane was going to meet him, and she suggested that they go to the designated place the next morning. The moonlight dimly illuminated the room. A small cup of hot aromatic tea stood on the table. Ariane stepped out onto the balcony to get some fresh air, the wind blowing through her golden hair. The countess turned around, hearing the door creak behind her. She was incredibly happy to know that Cassadine had finally returned. The guy's face was grim and unwavering. The girl asked her brother to sit down and tell her what had happened. The healer suggested that he had been caught while returning the knight's armor. The brother denied Ariane's assumption. The countess asked why her brother had such a gloomy expression on his face. The visibly worried guy asked Ariane if she liked green eyes. The blonde assumed that the girl didn't like him only because he had amethyst eyes instead of green. The healer asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Ariane asked why she would hate him because of the color of his eyes. The blonde couldn't understand why she told Damien that. The healer assured her brother that she loved him more than anything. The girl tried to prove to the young man that the color of his eyes or hair did not matter. She claimed that no matter what he looked like, she would still love him more than anyone else. Trying to contain his rage, Cassadine smashed a mug of hot tea. The blonde asked his sister how many people she had already managed to deceive. The guy asked if he was the number one. Penetrating Ariane with his gaze, the blonde ordered her not to turn away. Drops of hot tears began to slowly flow from the healer's eyes. After the girl felt his power, she realized that it was difficult to breathe. The boy ordered his sister to tell the truth, looking into his amethyst eyes. Blondinov was amazed at how she could portray such an innocent expression. A massive hand was tightly squeezing the healer's neck. To her regret, Ariane couldn't even respond with a word. With her last strength, the blonde pushed the young man away and tried to catch her breath. The guy suggested that from the outside it might look like he was doing something bad. He assured that he hadn't even started yet. The Countess said that if he sincerely desired this, then she was ready to be patient, since he was her only younger brother. Ariane assured that she could endure it if it made him feel better. The healer asked if it really made him feel better. The girl was sure that Kasadin was not that kind of person. The handsome man advised her not to be mistaken about him anymore. The blonde understood that he showed his character only because he could not trust others. The girl sincerely believed that inside the guy was soft and sensitive. Approaching him, the blonde assured him that she would always be on his side. Through clenched teeth, Kasadin said that he hated her. Gently stroking his manly face, the girl said that everything was fine. Ariane assured that he could even use her for his own purposes if he stopped reproaching himself after that. Soon the guy, looking down, headed for the exit. The healer realized that in some ways she agreed with his words. She reminded herself that she had kept him here to use. The Countess was sure that the prince of the ruined kingdom must have something to tell. She could not understand why the young man did not talk about his past and the kingdom of Haran. Sympathy flashed through the girl's heart, because she understood that Kasadin's homeland had turned to ashes because of the prophecy. The Countess was determined to find out all the details herself. Sasha asked Milady if she really didn't need an escort. The maid suggested that she should have taken at least Kasadin with her. The brunette was worried that something might have happened to Ariane during such a dangerous journey. The healer explained that she was not alone, as Sasha was next to her. The blonde couldn't afford to drag her brother to this place and dig up information about him in front of his nose. The girl drew the maid's attention to the fact that this path was hard to call a road. The Countess asked Sasha if she was sure that anyone lived on this mountain. The girls walked through a dense forest. Sunlight played on the branches of massive trees. The maid looked closely at the small piece of paper, trying to find the way. The brunette assured that if this way turned out to be wrong, she would severely punish the informant. A little surprised by such phrases, the lady suggested checking this information first. Soon the girls came to a small house in the middle of the forest when the sun was at its zenith. Knocking uncertainly, the Countess asked if there was anyone inside. Sasha assumed that they might have moved out long ago, since the house looked abandoned. The blonde suggested waiting a little longer just in case. Soon the door creaked open and an old man walked out with an unsteady gait. The man asked what they had forgotten in his house. Stepping forward and removing her massive hood, Ariane reported that she had heard that someone living here knew about the kingdom of Haran. The Countess said that they wanted to know the reasons for the collapse of the kingdom of Haran. The blonde asked the old man his name. Taking off his hood, the man introduced himself as Notios. Looking at Ariane, the man noticed that the god loved her very much. The ascetic reported that despite his poor eyesight, he saw the god's finger, which was directed at the girl. The blonde was a little taken aback when she realized that a great prophet was standing in front of her. Putting his hand on his heart, the man confirmed that he had once been called that, but now he was too old for that title. The Countess could not understand, because everyone was sure that he had died long ago. Notios explained that he had paid for the lives of many people stolen because of his predictions. The prophet said that because of this, he tried to live in the shadows. The man was sure that if the girls had come here, it was God's will. Notios lowered his eyes and explained that it could be said that the kingdom of Haran had fallen because of his long tongue. The blonde asked what the prophecies were about. The man suggested that God's favorite could have told him about it. Notios began his story. The prophet said that in the kingdom of Chiron, a real king was born, whom the world had never seen, and all countries, including the empire, will bow at his feet and will rule undividedly over all living things. The blonde asked if the person in question was alive. The prophet assured her that the prediction had changed at the moment. Notios reported that a hawk with sharp wings had found a back to grab onto, and a black raven, not knowing how high he was flying, would die when the hawk struck him in the back. The prophet explained that this was all he could tell. Ariane asked if he could explain what was hidden behind the prediction. The man said that Milady herself knew everything. The girl asked if she could ask one last question. The blonde asked what exactly it meant that she was God's favorite. Natios explained rather vaguely that there were no results in the world without causes. The blonde regretted that the old man would have to move again. Sasha claimed that she had never even thought that they would meet the seer. The girl admitted that she was genuinely surprised by this, and admitted that Notios's speech seemed incomprehensible to her. The countess thanked Sasha, once again explaining that they had an excellent harvest. The healer was sure that the black raven the prophet spoke of was Damien. The girl had no idea that by pretending to be disinterested in power, he was simply destroying his main opponent in Chiron. Arian assumed that the man wanted to put his son on the throne. The blonde was very interested in how her brother would react if he found out that the man who destroyed his homeland was already dead. The healer sincerely sympathized with Cassidan, who had been enduring horrors all this time only because he dreamed of taking revenge. The girl didn't know if her brother would be happy if he found out that this man's son was still alive. Arian smiled and sympathized with his younger brother, but was sincerely glad that they had a common goal. A small map was quickly burning in the girl's hand. The countess was surprised that God's love for her was so great. Letting the rest of the ashes fly into the wind, the blonde doubted that she deserved it. Ariani hesitantly knocked on her brother's door. The guy was surprised that she came to him personally. Casadin came up from behind her and asked if she had any business to attend to. The healer grinned and asked if she needed a reason to meet him. Opening the door, the guy invited his sister to come inside, assuring her that it would be rude to talk to her outside. Having adjusted her luxurious golden hair, the blonde asked where she had been that day. Removing her hand, the countess said that if Cassidan had been so curious, he could have followed her. The girl reminded him that her brother had never told her the truth, and asked him what he was so afraid of. She assumed that he was afraid that she would tell someone who he was or send him back to the arena. Ariani said that she would be very happy if all her brother's fears were gone. The countess grinned and said that he could squeeze her throat as tightly as he wanted. The girl asked him to strangle her as hard as he did not trust her. Abruptly throwing his sister aside, Cassidan asked if she was afraid of death. The blonde, breaking into a scream, asked if she had gone crazy. Soon the guy came to his senses and tightly pressed the girl's fragile body to himself. The blonde asked for forgiveness, explaining that it was all his fault. The brother asked Arian not to do it again. The girl tried to remember if Cassidan had ever asked her for something so strongly. Sadness was visible in his sky-blue eyes, and tears were quickly welling up in her eyes. The blonde told her brother that she truly loved him. Casadin held her fragile body tightly, pulling her closer to him. Left completely alone, the guy realized how tired he felt, because last night he only thought about her and could not rest at all. The blonde knew that his sister had left in the middle of the night, but he didn't go out on purpose. The guy thought it was better not to show how much Ariani was bothering him. Casadina became even worse because she was not around. The brother could not understand why the girl went to the imperial castle. The blonde felt at rock bottom when Ariani said she fell in love with the duke at first sight. The guy felt a storm of emotions when his sister said this to another person. He understood that his sister had truly gone mad. The former gladiator felt like he was slowly falling into a deep abyss. The guy understood that this was not normal, because he could not let her go, because he was afraid that she would disappear, like a star in the night fog. Casadin buried his face in his hands, trying to forget about everything. The countess noticed that after that day, her brother became more polite to her. Arian knew that he no longer lied and did not come in the middle of the night. The girls realized that she could have been too harsh with him. Arian did not regret at all that she resorted to blackmail. The healer was very disappointed that the guy did not trust her so much. The countess wanted to check how he would behave in such a situation. She knew perfectly well that she was not going to die. During breakfast, the girl realized that Cassidan began to look at her much more often, and for longer periods of time in complete silence. Noticing the sincere smile on his face, the countess asked what had happened. Taking his amethyst eyes away from her, the guy replied that there was nothing important. The blonde opened the newspaper, looking for the necessary information. Sasha could not believe that the Duke claimed that his reputation was ruined, although there was no concrete evidence pointing to him. Ariani was amazed at how simple the Archduke was. The healer didn't care whether he won or not. The girl understood that this was the lowest thing a person who had something to lose could do. The blonde was sure that she would finally be able to be at peace, She was sure that he would soon propose to meet. The Countess realized that she needed to show Damien that she was supposedly on his side. A loud noise outside distracted the girl from her thoughts. Throwing open the door, one of the maids informed the lady that someone had sent her a gift. The blonde was surprised and asked who the recipient was. She assured them that the sender was unknown, but they were told that a slave had been delivered. The dim rays of the sun fell through huge pieces of fabric and bars on the emaciated body. The guy's hands were shackled, and his clothes were covered with brown spots. The slave's gaze was dull. The girl realized that the Archduke's gift had already arrived. Looking at the arriving slave, Arian could not understand how the brunette was going to give this man to the prince. The boy's body and clothes were covered in bloodstains, and his t-shirt had many holes in it. The coachman arrived and asked the fragile girl if she could handle him. The man warned that the slave was very strong. Ariani said that everything was fine and asked to let the slave go. The messenger told the girl that the Archduke had asked her to convey that he wanted to meet her as soon as possible. The man fell to one knee and said that the suitcase contained tranquilizers that could turn a wild animal into a helpless sheep. The man asked not to worry, claiming that the drug had no negative effect on health. The messenger assured that it was only to calm the furious nature. Shaitan reported that the lady could go to the duchy if she needed more, and wishing her all the best, he left. Sitting down next to the slave, the Countess realized that he was already under the influence of a tranquilizer. The girl looked closely at the arriving slave. The blonde's breath burned the soft leather of her neck. The healer turned around abruptly and told Kasadijin that he had frightened her. The girl asked her brother if he could have walked less silently. The blonde explained that it had become his habit. Smiling, the guy asked how else he would be able to see her surprised face. The boy glanced at the arriving slave and asked if he was the one the Archduke had spoken of. The healer's heart was filled with sympathy, for she knew what it was like to be caught by Damien. Just one look at the injection needle and the slave in the cage made the healer think she was doing something terrible. The blonde asked his sister what she was going to do. Sighing heavily, Ariani reported that the new arrival was just a gift. The Countess reported that first they needed to wash and change him. Turning to the servants, the blonde warned that the slave was quite strong, and at least 3 people would be needed. The girl asked to prepare food for him in the very last room. Noticing Kasadin's darkened face, the girl realized that he was afraid that another slave would take his place. Patting him on the back, Arian said that only he was her brother, and asked him not to make that expression anymore. The events quickly moved to a luxurious imperial palace. The man asked Leon what he was thinking about. Rubbing the back of his head, the blonde asked him not to yell at him like that. The emperor wondered what might happen if someone overheard his conversation with the girl. The father explained that they might think that his wife's place was equal to a dog. The blonde asked his son if he thought that was why he asked Lady Circia to take care of him. Smiling, the prince said that she had refused his offer. The guy noticed that she turned out to be a really interesting woman. The blonde said that if Ariani agreed to become his wife, he would immediately lose interest in her. Leon reported that the prestige of the imperial palace could have fallen to the ground because of the attempted poisoning. The prince informed his father that he had made a mistake and had not been able to find the culprit. The blonde explained that he had made a laughingstock of the entire castle, and then the imperial family. The man jumped up abruptly and asked his son how he dared to say something like that. The blonde reminded his father that if anyone saw them, they might think something wrong. The man asked his son how he dared to talk to him in such a throne. The emperor wanted to tell how hard it was for him to get the position of ruler. Leon asked the man if his responsibility for his mother's death was lost. The blonde said that he had never craved the title of crown prince, nor the love of a father filled with responsibility. And he asked not to call him for such stupid things anymore, saying that it was time for him to go. Entering his room, the guy comfortably settled down on the huge bed. Leon looked at the delicate forget-me-not flowers and again remembered his beloved. The butler said that they didn't have the right size clothes for the slave and asked what to do. Looking at the muscular, scarred body, Ariani wondered where he came from in the estate. The girl thought that her room seemed small compared to the slave. She saw in him forms similar to a bear and a black leopard, and she could not understand why Damien would give the valuable slave to the prince. The countess said that he should at least put something on him, and assured him that he couldn't leave the gift in such a state in front of a lady. The blonde said that she could help him with clothes herself. Coming closer to the guy, the healer asked what his name was. There was only silence in response. The servants asked the brunette why he was silent. The mistress claimed that there was no need to shout at the guy and suggested that he was tired after a long journey. The maid informed Milady that giving expensive clothes and good food to a slave was a strange idea. The butler bowed and asked for forgiveness for his impudence. The blonde assured him that everything was fine. Approaching the slave, the blonde said that he could eat as much as he wanted. She assumed that he had a very long journey. Arian promised that if the brunette was still hungry, she would ask for more. There was only ringing silence in response. The blonde asked the guy not to worry about the maid's words and just eat. The countess asked him if he liked such food. The girl assumed that the young man was tormented by thirst due to the high temperature outside. Looking closely at the slave's face, Ariane could not understand why he did not answer her. The girl understood that Damien could not send a disobedient slave to the prince. The countess asked the brunette to move the sofa closer to her. The brunette lifted the luxurious sofa without much effort and after a few moments placed it on the floor in front of the lady. The girl was amazed because he had the strength of at least 3 people. The blonde was surprised that he did not eat or speak, but simply followed orders. The healer felt a little uneasy as she realized that this man was born only for physical labor. Coming closer to him, the girl began to carefully examine the deep scars. The girl realized that he had received wounds from teeth, but not human, but animal. Touching the brunette, the healer felt that because of the tranquilizers, he had a very strange heartbeat. The girl was amazed that despite the large amount of energy the young man had, there was no replenishment. The blonde felt that her whole body inside, unlike the outside, was in a terrible state. Looking closely at the slave's face, the blonde realized that someone had torn out this man's tongue. The healer, standing in her room, carefully looked at the syringe with injections that were being injected into the poor fellow's body. The girl poured the contents of one of the syringes onto the delicate petals of the thistle flowers. The blonde realized that the mixture was specially made so that its ingredients could not be recognized. Ariane realized that under the cover of the tranquilizer there was a rather strong poison. The countess tried to understand Damien's train of thought. The girls found it very suspicious to poison a slave, whom he was then going to give to the crown prince. The healer assumed that the archduke could not allow a strong slave to remain near the crown prince for long. Arian understood that he was removing possible interference in advance. The blonde realized that her life had ended the same way. The girl ordered the brunette to lie down on the bed. The healer realized that her sleeping space had not looked so small with Kassadin lying there. The blonde decided to start getting rid of the poison from the head and then return the cut tongue. The countess realized that this could take a lot of energy from her. Gently touching the boy's torso, she said that it would be good if he could speak again. And then he told her what had happened in the duchy. Ariane could feel even on her fingertips how deeply the poison had penetrated his muscular body. The girl realized that this drug was much worse than the substance that they tried to poison the prince with. The blonde knew it wouldn't be enough to heal the slave's body from the inside. Ariane decided to focus on using all her power. The guy hesitantly raised his clouded, faded blue eyes. The brunette asked who the blonde was. Ariane's vision suddenly went blurry. She realized she hadn't meant to go that far. The guy reached his huge hands out toward her. The maids were surprised that the master returned with a bunch of gifts every time he went to patrol the territory. The girl was amazed that the count had to wait 3 whole hours to buy honey, since his daughter loved sweets so much. The maid was taken aback when she realized that he had brought such a valuable thing and said that she wanted to see it. Sasha explained that the count had already gone to personally deliver everything to the lady. Knocking hesitantly on the door, the man asked his daughter if he could come in. Hearing no answer, the blonde said it was Dad, and he had just returned home. The count asked Ariane again if she had been in the room. The man hesitantly opened the door. When the blonde saw his daughter lying on the muscular torso of a huge stranger, he immediately dropped the gifts and hurried to them. The slave looked in surprise at the aristocrat shaking with anger. Walking down the long corridor, which was illuminated by the rays of bright sunlight, Kassadin realized that he had been acting like a child lately. The blonde heard the count's furious cries and ran into his beloved older sister's room. The man took out his sword and asked the slave how he dared to touch his daughter. Seeing the horrible picture, The guy hit the big guy in the face with all his might, causing the slave to lose a tooth. With eyes burning with anger, Kasadin said that he would personally kill the villain. Holding his daughter's body in his arms, the count said that he had allowed the boy to kill the criminal that same day. The blonde asked the culprit how he could have taken advantage of his absence to do something like that. The slave, breaking into a scream, asked what all this meant. The boy asked Kasidin who he was and why he could speak. The brunette had a clear memory of his tongue being cut out. The gentleman hovered over the guy and asked if he should tell him his name. The blonde said that he would die at that very moment. When they saw the count carrying out the lady's body, the maids began to fuss. Ariane hesitantly opened her eyes. With a beaming smile, the count realized that his daughter had finally come to her senses. The blonde asked her father when he had managed to return. The count, looking down, asked his daughter for forgiveness for not paying enough attention to her lately. With pain in his eyes, the man said that he had no idea that while he was not home, that man would dare to sneak into her room. Looking at the slave with disdain, Kasadin could not understand what had happened. The healer assured him that she was very tired, as she had not slept for a long time, and simply fell asleep leaning on his chest. The blonde assumed that if she said this, then this could really happen. Gently touching her brother's thigh, the healer assured him that this was indeed the case. The girl asked him to introduce himself. The big guy said his name was Tool. The blonde explained to the guy that he was in a very bad state when he arrived at their house. The countess asked him to tell her what had happened. Toole hesitated a little and insisted that he didn't remember anything. The girl couldn't believe that Damien's tranquilizer could also affect the poor guy's memory. The slave claimed that he remembered nothing, as if someone had deliberately colored his memory black. The blonde assured that if you remember even a little thing, you should tell her right away. The guy assured that the last thing he heard was someone's voice demanding more blood. Tuloshi explained that it might sound like complete nonsense, but he distinctly remembered that the man had cut out his tongue. Clenching his hands tightly, the slave assured that when he came to his senses, the tongue was in place. He wondered how this could have happened, and he explained that this was the main reason why he did not tell the mistress anything. Ariane asked the boy if he remembered who exactly cut out his tongue. Tool claimed that he was blindfolded at the time. He only heard the voice of an elderly man. The slave claimed that at that moment he smelled a strong smell of blood. The countess wondered who the elderly man here might be who had the skill to cut out a tongue without killing. The girl suggested that it might be the butler Kindel. The healer knew that he was Damien's closest supporter and had been with the boy since childhood. The girl assumed that it was he who got rid of her body after her death. The blonde knew she couldn't say anything for sure. Sighing heavily, Ariane thanked the young man for telling his story despite all the pain. The girl promised that this would not happen again and invited the big guy to have a good rest at their home. The blonde asked Tool to wait a little. She assured him that she would soon get him suitable clothes. Embarrassed, the brunette said that he had never wanted to cause her any inconvenience, reminding her that he was an ordinary slave. Kasadin asked his rival if he was going to walk around the house like that. The blonde assured him that she would ask the servants to show the young man to his room. The boy, very embarrassed, covered his muscular body with his hands and thanked her. Turning to her brother, Ariane said that he could go. The boy turned around abruptly and left the room without saying anything. The healer couldn't understand what had been happening to her brother lately. She called out to him, but he pretended not to hear her words. The count turned to his dear daughter. He reminded her that he had agreed to accept only Kasadin. The man, shaking all over, asked what that huge slave was doing on their estate. The healer blushed and asked for forgiveness. Father asked Ariane if she could throw out this horrible slave. The man explained that he was fed up with Kasadin. He asked if Kasadin had been in the imperial castle. The count said that when the aristocrats found out that they had hidden such a handsome man, they raised a fuss. The blonde was unhappy that his daughter had brought another slave into the house. The man was afraid that the aristocrats would find out about Kasadin's origins. Smiling, the girl asked her father not to worry, and promised to send the slave to the prince soon. The blonde jumped up and asked why His Highness needed a slave. Confused, Ariane explained that she had to give the gift to the prince. The blonde assured that she knew Leon personally, and that was why she was asked to do this. The girl said that she helped His Highness recover from poisoning. Embarrassed, The girl admitted that he had recovered and even visited their house. The man asked again if the prince himself had really been to their estate. The blonde handed his daughter a letter, telling her that she should take it. The healer was taken aback when she realized that it was an invitation to an imperial banquet. The letter that was handed over said that the forget-me-not flower was still alive. Ariani was surprised that the crown prince would write so bluntly. The blonde was sure that the reputation of the imperial family had fallen after the incident with Damien. She assumed that the prince wanted to show everyone that he was okay. The girl said that the banquet would take place in 2 weeks. Arian promised to send the slave immediately after the banquet. She planned to find out all the information about Damien down to the smallest detail. A scattering of stars bathed the luxurious count's gardens in cold light. The wind, interrupting the night silence and rustling the leaves, played in the branches of the trees. The girl cut off a small piece of steak. The healer felt her adopted brother's gaze on her. Arian asked the blonde what had happened. Cassadine asked his sister if she needed a slave in bed. The countess was taken aback, trying to understand what kind of nonsense they were telling her. Abruptly putting his massive hand on the table, the blonde said that if she needed a slave in bed, she could use him. The guy explained that he was already dirty, so she could use him. Taken aback by what was happening, Ariani asked if he was in his right mind. Cassadine begged his sister not to bring anyone else. The healer couldn't understand how someone could blurt out something like that so easily. Gently touching his face, the girl looked into his amethyst eyes and asked what he was talking about. The healer asked who decides who is dirty and who is not. Ariani asked her brother not to talk about himself as if he were some kind of thing. She kept repeating these words to him. It was painful for the healer to watch how the handsome man continued to behave as if he was still a tool and not a person. Her brother's words made the girl feel like there was no difference between her and Damien. Ariani wondered if she would get dirty if she kissed him too. The healer gently touched her lips to her brother's forehead. The boy assured her that his sister could not be dirty. Cassadine insisted that if she were dirty, the whole world would be considered so. The healer told the boy that the same thing was true for him. Arian asked her brother to stop humiliating himself. The blonde assured him that he was the noblest man. She hoped that the hawk with broken wings would no longer have to fight his pain alone and decided to become his nest. Kneeling, the guy laid his head on the feet of his adopted sister. Cassadine admitted that he lied when he said he hated her. The blonde explained that from the very first time they met until now, he had never once felt hatred towards her for a moment. The handsome man began his speech, but after a few moments, the blonde fell silent, burying his face in her lap. Cassadine did not utter another word that evening. Since then, the healer did not ask him. The countess realized that she did not want to treat her brother the way Damien treated her. The girl decided to restore their position and start acting. Bowing her head, Ariani told the Archduke that she was waiting for him. A barely noticeable grin appeared on the brunette's face. Taking Damien in her hand, the blonde assured that she had heard that he was free, but was still worried that he might become ill in prison. Ariani asked why the Archduke had not contacted her. Smiling, the brunette said that he was too busy with the search. The healer assured that she did not mean anything bad. The countess explained that she was simply very glad that they met again. Ariani gently took the Archduke's hand and squeezed it tightly. The girl expected the man's heart to be too unstable. The healer clearly remembered that he stoically hid his illness until he lost consciousness in front of her due to an attack. Ariani knew she should heal the guy, as strong emotions could cause an attack. Smiling, the blonde asked if he wanted an invitation to His Highness. The girl explained that she was going to hand over the slave at a banquet and talk to the prince that same day. The blonde asked if the Archduke would like to accompany her. Smiling, Damien pulled his hand away, saying that it was a great idea. With a forced smile, the blonde said that then they could meet again soon. Entering the room, Kindle turned to his master. The man handed the Archduke several articles. Damien realized that the girl's brother was very suspicious. The slave came out to meet the girl and was incredibly happy to see her. Smiling, the healer was pleased that the clothes for the guy had already arrived. The countess asked him if he liked the new clothes. The brunette said that the clothes were just his size. Tuli was amazed that the aristocrat cared so much about him. After all, he was an ordinary slave. Arian said that she had an important conversation with him and asked if he was free. The healer said that in a couple of days he would have to go with her to the castle for a banquet. Ariani said that the guy would have to meet the Archduke who did all this to him. The healer asked if the slave could handle the task. The brunette said that he wanted to repay her care with all his heart. Tears appeared on the guy's face. When the girl left the room, the brother asked if she was going to the castle. Looking down, the blonde asked if his sister could take him with her. Smiling, the healer reminded him that Kassadine already knew the right answer. Approaching her, the guy promised that he would not do anything else, and he promised that he would not be noticed at all. Ariani realized that she couldn't take her brother with her, since he considered the prince his real enemy. Squeezing his hand tightly, the girl felt that she really wanted his trust. The countess asked Kassadine if he would reveal all her secrets if she took him with her. The blonde said that she wanted to tell him something. The brother froze in anticipation of what was said. Arian assured that she did not force him, but if he wanted to talk, then she would not go there alone. The girl could not understand why he did not trust her completely. Arian understood that the choice was left only to the blonde. With shining eyes, Sasha wished the mistress a good trip. The maid assured that the mistress would be the most beautiful at that banquet. The slave helped the girl into the carriage, for which the mistress thanked him. Curiously, the brunette asked why her ladyship had not taken Kassadine with her. Looking down, the blonde said that she had not intended to do so. As the servants closed the cabin door, Arian heard the distinct sound of running. Kassadine burst into the carriage and announced that he, too, intended to go. The healer put on a routine smile and asked him to sit down quickly. By evening, when the stars illuminated the road with a cold light, they arrived at the place. The arches of the gate were decorated with many flowers. The blonde noticed that there were many more people than last time. The blonde assumed that His Highness had invited all the aristocrats of the empire, except for one person. Approaching Lady Circia, the Archduke addressed her. Damien noticed that the healer was visible from afar. The boy asked Milady to be her escort that day. The aristocrats began to talk among themselves, causing a buzz to spread through the crowd. Everyone was discussing that the Archduke was going to sue the imperial palace, and they couldn't figure out what the man was doing at the event. The guests at the event could not believe that the brunette was so friendly with Countess Circia. After the girl agreed, Kassadine gently touched her hand. The blonde asked if he should have accompanied her. The Archduke remembered that they had already met at the last banquet. The girl cast a disapproving glance at her brother, trying to remind him that he had promised to pretend that he had not been at this event. Smiling, Kassadine asked the healer if she had forgotten about their agreement. Damien reminded him that the young man was Milady's younger brother. The blonde was surprised that he remembered him so well. The Archduke insisted that he could not forget those violet eyes. The Archduke claimed that this was their third meeting. Damien said that they always met in threes. Then, in the dungeon, the brunette said that he had already seen this night. Trying to maintain her composure, the blonde clarified that the three of them had only met for the second time. Arian assumed that the brunette could have confused her brother with someone else. Looking closely at Kassadine, the Archduke noticed that he was deceiving his sister. Damien explained that on this day, Milady had asked him to be her escort, and because of that, he would be taking a seat next to her at the event. The blonde grinned and assured that Sister Arian had asked him about this earlier. Taking the girl by the hand, the Archduke reported that everything was very confusing. Damien, hanging over her, reported that the blonde had already forgotten that he was a slave. There was fear in our heroine's blue eyes. The girl's gaze darted between the guys, trying to figure out who had given out this information. Pulling her hand away, Arian asked the Archduke if he had insulted her. The blonde could not understand how he could blurt out something like that. Soon the aristocrats greeted the small son of the empire. A radiant smile appeared on Leon's face when he saw his beloved. His Highness could not believe that she had actually come. The healer asked how she could decline his invitation. Smiling, the brunette told the prince that he was very glad that everything was okay here. Leon looked at him intently and said that he didn't remember him inviting him. Damien grinned and said that they had done nothing wrong. The guy couldn't understand why he treated him so badly. The brunette asked how he could sit still in such a situation. The small son of the empire asked if he could trust the guy after that statement on the imperial family. Damien asked if the imperial family had ever trusted him. The brunette noted that Leon really knew how to joke. Trying to stop the quarrel, Kassadine said that there were too many extra eyes at the event. The prince assumed that the young count had addressed him. The blonde reported that there were several uninvited guests at the event. The surprised blonde asked if she couldn't even surpass her brother. The prince promised to turn a blind eye to this, saying that he had a kind heart. The blonde asked Cassadine why he was holding his sister's hand. The count explained that he had promised to accompany her. The guy assured that if Arian allowed him, he would hold her hand all day. Lowering his amber eyes, the guy said that he noticed it last time and asked if they were really brother and sister. Leon saw a rival in the guy. The crown prince noticed that the blonde man looked at Ariane in a completely different way than a brother looks at his sister. Coming closer to Leon, the girl asked if he wanted to dance with her. The blonde laughed, tears welling up in his eyes. The healer felt very uncomfortable realizing that he was about to say something indecent in front of all the aristocrats, disgracing her family. Leon noticed that the lady always went beyond what was expected. The blonde asked if the girl was really in her right mind. The prince reminded that men usually asked ladies to dance. Extending his hand, the little son of the empire asked Arian if she would agree to dance with him. Taking his sister's other hand, Cassadine gave her a puppy dog look. She hoped he wouldn't worry. A sadness flashed in the count's eyes. The prince said that if the dancing was to begin, it would be great if the uninvited guests left. The brunette reminded that he had an agreement with Lady Circia, and for this reason, he could not leave this event. The Archduke reminded Milady that they needed to show something to His Highness. The Countess grinned and called Schul to her. Pointing at the brunette, the healer said that he was a special gift from Archduke Damien for His Highness's birthday. The Countess glanced at the prince and said that she wanted him to be able to guarantee her safety. The blonde insisted that this had to be done before she explained why she was at the celebration with him. Ariane said that she was afraid that the Archduke could get very angry with her for the truth. Damien asked the Countess why she suddenly began to fear him. The guy asked where the blonde was going to involve him. Raising his hand, the prince said that he had not been asked, and it would have been better for him to remain silent. Leon noted that it was one of the best swords in the Empire. It was quite easy to kill a man with it. Gritting his teeth tightly, the brunette said that he was surprised that he insulted him in a public place. The guy assumed that the imperial family had not found a good reason to lock him in prison. Leon grinned and said that he needed to change something in his life. The blonde explained that otherwise the lady would not have asked him for such a thing. Looking closely at Damien's face, the healer realized that the crow would never become a hawk. Arian knew that the man who would take the throne would do so with ease by right of his birth. The blonde told the lady that he guaranteed her safety. The girl understood that Damien was sure that he would be able to turn everything around, but in the end, he found himself in this situation. The blonde admitted that she met the Archduke in prison out of great melancholy. The healer said that Damien wanted to use her friendship with the prince so that she would help the guy free himself by sending the slave. Rushing to the girl, the brunette ordered her not to lie to the crown prince. The countess reminded him that the emperor had released the boy due to lack of evidence, despite the suspicious circumstances. Ariane pointed out to the guests that he had filed a lawsuit against the imperial family. The prince asked why he needed a friend at such a time. The healer asked how she could know all the Archduke's plans. Ariane said that friendship could be of many different kinds. The girl noted that the reason why everyone who had something was dissatisfied with what they already had was because they looked up, not down. The blonde smirked and asked what the man, who was already in the position of Archduke, needed. Damien began to quickly approach the girl, intending to shut her up. Having stood up for his sister, the count asked her not to approach her again. Grabbing the guy by the collar, the Archduke asked how he dared to block his path. The brunette reminded him that he was just a vile arena slave. Keeping his cool, the blonde said that he really was incredibly rude. The count reminded that they had met for the second time, and he had pretended to know everything about him. The blonde was amazed that despite the fact that he was a suspect in the poisoning of the prince and dared to sue the imperial family, he still came to the celebration on that day. Looking intently at the Archduke, Cassadine said that if he were in his place, he would not do such a thing. A grin appeared on the brunette's face. Soon Damien, clutching his heart, fell to his knees, trembling all over. The healer couldn't contain her joy and only slightly covered her grin with her hand. Arian couldn't believe that it had finally happened. Running up to the Archduke, the blonde noticed that he was very pale. The girl assumed that he had a heart problem. Hatred was visible in the brunette's emerald eyes, and a grin appeared on his face. Leon asked the brunette if he had any health problems. Ariani reported that he grabbed his chest and asked to call a doctor immediately. The guy, overcoming the pain, tried to control himself, and he said that everything was fine with him and asked to call his butler Kindle. Raising her eyes, the blonde asked Tool to help the guy. Trying to get to his feet, Damien said that he did not need help. Leaning over the brunette, the slave assumed that he was his original master. The Archduke's face showed extreme surprise. The guy said that for the first time, he could properly introduce himself to the gentleman. Damien couldn't understand how the boy could speak again. The Archduke's heart attack only got worse. The boy's vision began to blur. The girl stood in the middle of a luxurious garden. The blonde turned to his beloved. Ariani assured him that she was very sorry that everything had to end. The Countess assumed that he had been paying a lot of attention to the banquet. The blonde explained that it would be strange to continue the banquet when the Archduke of their state had fainted. Leon was sure that everyone had a lot of reasons to gossip, and the guests returned home without regret. Tucking a strand of golden hair behind her ear, the girl asked why he asked her to stay. The blonde asked his beloved if she wanted to get straight to the point of the conversation. The prince suggested that they first look around. The guy said that according to the rules, only members of the imperial family had access to this garden. The healer said that her younger brother was already waiting for her. The guy suggested that Arian think about her strange younger brother later. The blonde asked his beloved if she knew that this banquet was arranged for her. The girl was a little taken aback, noticing that he called a member of her family strange. Leon laughed and assumed that only she could have emphasized that phrase. The Countess claimed that she was very surprised when he said that her younger brother looked at her strangely. Leon said that he was telling the truth, and he asked the girl why she was indignant. The blonde admitted that it would be quite difficult to hold a normal banquet. The boy was amazed that the Archduke had a rather serious illness, which he had hidden for a long time. The prince reported that there was no improvement in Damien's condition. The guy was amazed by the butler's devotion, since he could simply say that his master was ill. The blonde admitted that he did not understand the man at all. Leon was surprised that the Archduke wanted to give him a slave. Ariani understood that this was a completely adequate reaction of a normal person. She doubted the correctness of her actions. The girl did not know if it would be a good idea to send Chul to the prince, and she understood that he opened his heart as to a close friend. She realized that the slave was sent by the Archduke, and he would not be treated well. Ariani knew that the brunette would not be able to avoid disdainful glances. The healer knew very well the feeling when you are together, where there is no one to rely on. The girl hesitantly began to talk about that slave. Leon waved her off and said that he didn't care, and offered to return that guy back to the Archduke. The blonde assured him that she knew that he had a kind enough heart. Ariani asked for permission to take Tool for herself. The blonde reminded her that she had already handed the boy over to him, and could do whatever she wanted with him. His Highness promised to keep an eye on the Duke so that he wouldn't do anything strange. Leon informed her that he would guarantee her protection as he had promised her. The healer thanked her sincerely. She knew she couldn't bring Shul back to the Archduke's domain. She knew that place was hell for him. Arian lowered her eyes and came to the conclusion that if she kept the slave for herself, she would be breaking the promise she had given to her father. The girl's thoughts were interrupted by her brother's call. Kassadin was quickly approaching the couple. Smiling, the prince told the girl that it was bad when her brother entered this place at his own will. He reminded that only members of the imperial family were allowed to come to the estate. Kassadin grinned and said that he came to this place for his sister. The blonde explained that he was very worried because she was gone for a long time. The boy told Ariani that it was already late and they should go home. Leon noticed that the Count's love for his sister was incredible. The blonde asked how he would behave when Ariani married another man. Fury splashed in his amethyst eyes. Taking Ariani's hand, the blonde assured her that this would not happen. The blonde said that his sister would always be with him and would never marry another man. Looking into his deep sky-blue eyes, the brother asked if he was telling the truth. The girl was silent. She stared into Kassadin's eyes. He called out to her, bringing her out of her stupor and hurrying her to answer. The blonde briefly confirmed her brother's words. Leon crossed his arms and said that it was too late to answer. The prince explained to the Count that he was putting the girl in an awkward position. The healer said that it was time for them to leave and said goodbye until the next meeting. Leon asked if their next meeting would take place. The girl asked if the prince liked it when she came to the castle. Putting a fake smile on his face, the blonde said that he was always glad to see the healer when she came as a guest. After saying goodbye, the Count and Arian walked through the luxurious garden in complete silence. A viscous silence enveloped the brother and sister, and the air became viscous. The cold light of the stars illuminated a small path. Trying to break the silence, the blonde asked why his sister wasn't looking at him. The Countess asked Cassadine why he was looking at her with such eyes. The guy turned around and hugged her fragile body tightly to himself. The Count reminded her that the healer was his older sister and the only person in the world. Ariane couldn't figure out who was making that heartbeat that was echoing in her ears. The girl wanted to ask if it was true that in his eyes she was just with her sister, but the Countess was afraid that if she heard the answer, their relationship would never return to its original level. Under the cold starlight, Kindle poured the flammable liquid over the fragile, lifeless body. Without hesitation, the man threw a match into the pallets. Arian's lifeless body was quickly consumed by flames. Her soft blue dress was completely covered in blood. The fire quickly began to devour her light hair and clothes. Panic reigned in the imperial palace. The luxurious halls were in a fiery flame that mercilessly devoured human lives. The luxurious crystal lion statue was splashed with scarlet liquid. The man ran down the long corridor, breathing heavily, announcing the beginning of the rebellion. The servant informed that the captain of the royal knights had started this rebellion. The butler, kneeling and shaking, announced that the emperor had already renounced his title. The blond man threw down the flag and trampled on it. The rebel reported that the sun of the past had almost disappeared behind the horizon, and now a new era had begun. The blonde jumped up from her soft, cozy bed in horror. Arian realized that it was just her dream. Approaching his beloved sister, the blonde noticed that she was sweating heavily in her sleep and assumed that she was having a nightmare. The guy asked her not to worry. He reminded her that he was nearby and promised that it would always be like this. He gently kissed his sister on the forehead. The healer asked how long ago they returned from the estate. Cassadine insisted that his sister was so sound asleep that he did not dare wake her in the carriage. His brother apologized for bringing her into the room without permission. The girl looked at her golden loose hair. She wondered how her hair had come loose in her sleep. The Countess shuddered, realizing that her dress was completely different. Grabbing a pillow, the girl asked her brother if he had been there all this time. In a trembling voice, the Count said that Sasha had been changing the lady's clothes while he had been outside. The blonde asked his sister if she believed him at his word. She answered positively and smiled conciliatorily. Arian's heart melted at his sweet smile. She knew they had something to discuss. The healer asked her brother if he remembered their agreement. The girl reminded him that he had promised to tell her his secrets if she went to the banquet. The Countess admitted that she needed to tell him something. Lowering his amethyst eyes, the guy admitted that he did not know where to start this conversation. Cassadine said that many years ago there was a kingdom called Hiran. The Count admitted that the king was a pacifist and sought to remain neutral, but due to poor tactics and lack of military power, he fell to an invasion by a more powerful country. The guy confessed that all the members of the royal family had died, and only the useless crown prince remained. Cassadine assured that he had lived as a slave all this time, but he could not simply end his life because he was driven by only one feeling, revenge. The Count said that the empire was full of scum who had destroyed Chiron. The blonde assured that he wanted to tear them apart and make them feel the same pain that he had felt all these years. The healer decided to tell that their family had been close to the imperial family for several generations and were protected by it. The blonde claimed that Damien intended to take the throne. Ariane said that they needed to gather more information about him. The Countess explained that she wanted to prepare for the threat the Archduke could pose to her family. The healer assured that when she spoke of feelings, she was lying. Cassadine asked his sister if she wanted to get closer to the Archduke, and that was why she went to prison. The Countess explained that the boy's father was responsible for the destruction of the kingdom of Hiran. Arian explained that the Seville Empire had a great seer who was no longer there. The girl explained that Notios had predicted that a great king would be born in Hiran, and then the Archduke, who dreamed of the throne, felt threatened. The healer assured that this became a convenient pretext for conquering the country. The blonde assured him that the person who had hurt him was already dead. The girl said that Damien was the only blood relative of that person. Arian lowered her eyes and assured him that she understood perfectly well that this did not cancel out what the Empire had done. The blonde understood Cassidy's motives perfectly. She was even a little glad that they had a common enemy. The girl was pleased that her brother had finally decided to open up to her. She couldn't understand why she was so afraid to hear his answer. After all, she had seen pictures of that nightmare, and she couldn't stop thinking about it. Taking his sister's gentle hands, Cassidy reminded her that when he came to her room at dawn, she always helped him heal his scars. The blonde admitted that he was truly unhappy and lived only with rage and hatred towards this country. For a long time, the guy could not understand why Ariane tried to interfere in his life. The Count was genuinely afraid that if he revealed himself, his sister would never touch him again. He admitted that he was afraid that she would reject him, and that was why he behaved so rudely. His eyes were shining with joy, and his face was peaceful. Kassadin said that now he wanted something completely different, and he had a new reason to live. The guy took her hand and put it to his cheek. He said that the girl pulled him out of the depths of hell. Drops of hot tears appeared on Ariane's face, and she hugged her brother tightly. Having brought several vials of medicine to the gentleman, Kindle asked what could have happened at the banquet that he lost control of himself. Clutching his hand tightly on his chest, the brunette said that Arian Serkia was a complete psychopath. The Archduke assured them that they had to drop the lawsuit against the imperial family. Damien explained that, because of the girl, his reputation was now completely ruined. The boy took another bottle of medicine. He said that he would get into trouble if rumors spread that he was speaking out against the imperial family. The brunette asked since when the circus family had been connected with the emperor's family. The butler reported that the count was often at the imperial palace. The man said that he often saw the emperor even before his daughter's debut in society. Kindle explained that this was the reason why there had long been rumors that Ariane would become the crown princess. Brunette asked what the point was of the crown prince marrying an ordinary countess. After thinking for a moment, Damien said that perhaps there was some meaning in this. The guy insisted that the countess said that she supposedly knew a personal doctor who could cure any injury or illness. Damien was sure that she was related, or simply a talent discovered by the count's family. The butler reminded them that they had been looking everywhere for a doctor who could cure their heart disease. The man assured them that they would definitely have found out about the existence of such a doctor. The gentleman said that the slave he had sent to the countess had regained his tongue and was even able to speak perfectly. Damien said he got the feeling they hadn't cut out the big guy's tonguing at all. The brunette said that he needed to meet the countess again. The guy simply couldn't miss such a chance. Sitting in the room on a small sofa, Toole was struck by the calm. The guy was surprised that he was given comfortable clothes and a spacious, warm room, as well as good food at any time. He didn't have many memories of his life as a slave, but he knew that people like him weren't usually treated that way. The guy realized that he had only said a few words to the Archduke, and he doubted that it could have done any good. The brunette wondered how much longer he could stay in this beautiful place. Toole understood that when he left, he would become a slave to the emperor's family. The Duke interrupted the guy's thoughts and entered his room. Panic appeared on the brunette's face. The slave suddenly jumped up from his seat and asked his master why he had come to him alone. Piercing the brunette with his amethyst eyes, Kassadin explained that he would ask questions, and he would have to answer him. The guy asked Toole if he really saw Duke Damien threatening his sister at the banquet. The Count asked how he could trust him if he had kept silent about everything until now. Kassadin asked the boy why he had kept silent about everything that had happened to him in the duchy. The brunette assured that he wanted to help them himself, but could not remember. The guy assured that he knew perfectly well how much he owed to Mrs. Ariane. The Count grabbed the slave firmly by the throat and ordered him not to dare to pronounce his sister's name without reason. Cold beads of sweat slowly trickled down the brunette's face. Entering the room, the blonde asked her brother what he was doing. Damien looked closely at the family photograph. He remembered his elderly father in his last days. The man assured that the Archduke should take the imperial throne for himself. The Duke informed his son that he was worthy of this place. Damien knew that if he could cure his heart disease, his chances would increase. The guy dreamed of simply ripping out the organ that was preventing him from reaching the top. Interrupting the gentleman's thoughts, Kindle reported that he had brought his medicine. The butler informed that they had managed to find more material. The brunette asked if the ingredients were of excellent quality this time. The man assured that he had carefully selected only the healthiest ones. Bowing, Kindle reported that the slave he had sent was still with the Countess. The butler said that he asked someone to quietly find out, and he received confirmation that not only had the guy's tongue recovered, but his whole body moved normally. The man suggested that the slave had been treated without the use of tranquilizers. Damien was amazed that the Countess had managed to deal with this monster. The butler informed the gentleman that he had a bad feeling. Kindle explained that it was dangerous to leave the slave in the hands of the Countess any longer. The man shared his suspicions that the duchy itself had not found the man the county knew about. The butler warned the Duke that it would be better for him to stop all communication with the lady. Looking suspiciously at the worker, Damien explained that the big guy was just a monster who had been taken under the wing of a noble person. The guy asked not to invent anything until they had significant evidence. The gentleman ordered Kindle to sort out the materials without much noise. Bowing low, the faithful butler informed the master that he understood everything. Sitting opposite the slave, Ariane asked what had happened between him and her brother. The girl ordered him to tell only the truth. The brunette lowered his eyes and said that he had done nothing. The blonde assured him that she had not intended to scold him and asked him to answer honestly. The slave said that the master only wanted to make sure whether he had really lost his memory. Toole assured that he could understand the master's feelings, and assured that he too had suspicions about the gift from the terrible man. The guy noticed that despite the fact that they were not equal to my brother and sister, their relationship was closer than any other. Toole admitted that he was worried that his presence could spoil them, because he was just a slave who would soon leave. The blonde asked if he wanted to stay on the estate. The healer explained that he had already suffered enough horror. Ariane assured that she had no intention of returning him to the Duke. The girl said that she had already received permission to do so from the Crown Prince. Bitter tears appeared in the slave's eyes. The guy asked again if it was true that he would be allowed to stay in the Countess's house. The brunette promised to repay the blonde for her help and for all the inconveniences caused. Ariane came up behind her brother. The blonde was walking along the garden paths between the luxurious blue roses. Cassidin asked the girl if she was really going to leave the slave. With sadness in his eyes, the Duke asked his sister if he alone was not enough. Smiling, the healer said that was not the problem. The blonde reminded his sister that she used to say that she loved him. Cassadin wondered why she had stopped saying such warm words to him recently. The blonde's face rankled with suppressed emotions. The girl realized that she understood the weight of this word too late. The healer reminded them that the word was for lovers, not brother and sister. The blonde explained that they weren't related by blood anyway. The boy admitted that he never considered Ariane his sister. The Count gently took her hand and noticed that it was pricked by a pink thorn. The handsome man gently licked her injured finger, trying to dull her pain. The girl impulsively pushed him away, telling him that he shouldn't have done that. The healer tried to understand who she was angry with. The blonde realized that Cassidine had broken the family relationship that he had tried to maintain at least for show. The Countess was also angry with herself for not daring to push him away for a moment. Ariane realized that it didn't really matter who the problem was. The girl understood that it was time to end this strange game of brother and sister. Putting his hand on his heart, the blonde explained that he had fallen in love with her ever since they met eyes in that bloody gladiator arena. Cassadine admitted that he realized too late how important the blonde was to him. The guy recalled that she once asked him what he wanted. The blonde asked what she wanted. The handsome man promised to become her personal sword and asked her to look only at him from now on. Pushing her brother away again, the healer noted that he didn't even try to perceive her as a sister. The girl reminded him that this was part of their agreement. The blonde said that he couldn't say that because they were technically brother and sister. Ariane didn't want to admit that his smile was as beautiful as the sun. The blonde reproached herself for having started to shed real tears in a relationship created for the sake of revenge. Cassadine asked to be banished from the family. The healer asked him again what he had said. The handsome man said that if he was behaving so strangely and she didn't like him, then it would have been better to get rid of the nuisance right away. The blonde asked him in a trembling voice what had happened to his behavior. The Countess asked him if he thought she wanted to get rid of him. The brother told the healer that he did not want to become her weakness, and once again asked to expel him from the family. The man slapped the fresh newspaper with rage. The Count could not understand who dared to publish such an article. The maids began to talk among themselves about the article in the newspaper about Mr. Cassadine. The maids whispered that the Count was very angry, because this affected the family's prestige. The maid asked Sasha what had happened to Milady. The brunette said that Ariane had even closed the door to the room and had not come out since the previous day. The girl sat on a chair, her face buried in her knees. The blonde didn't know what to do, because she couldn't answer Cassadine. The Countess realized that she herself did not know what she wanted. The healer tried to understand from what point everything went wrong. Ariane wanted to influence her brother, as if to stain him with paint dissolved in water, but she herself did not notice how she was completely dyed in the color of the handsome man. The girl had never thought about it before that conversation. Knocking uncertainly on the door, the maid asked for forgiveness for interrupting her mistress's rest. The girl told the Countess that her father had invited her for a cup of tea. Ariane said that she was already on her way. The father was amazed that the crown prince handed the slave over to her. The girl lowered her eyes and asked for forgiveness for what had happened, because she had really asked to leave him for a while. Ariane said that the brunette had nowhere else to go because of what happened at the reception. The blonde asked her father to let the guy stay in their house. The Count, alarmed, asked his daughter if she would ask him to make Tulia part of their family. The healer assured that this would not happen. The man asked if she would make him her personal knight. The blonde hopefully asked if he would just be in their house. She confirmed. The Count breathed a sigh of relief. Ariane assured him that she would not dare to do it again. The man explained that the first time was difficult. The second time, easier. The father knew very well how stubborn the girl could be. The blonde didn't even imagine that such a stir would begin, but he knew that one day they would definitely be exposed. The Count reported that Cassadine stood out from the rest of the family. He admitted that everything about Cassadine initially irritated him. The father explained that he was eager to get rid of him at the first opportunity. The Count recounted his observations that he was an unusual slave, was elegant by nature, and could read and write. The man noticed that the handsome man dealt with a pile of documents in one day that would have taken him, the Count, several days. The Count admitted that a simple slave would not have been able to figure out such matters so quickly, and innate elegance was not inherent in them. Father assumed he was a foreign aristocrat who had been sold into slavery when his country was destroyed. Ariane sadly realized that her father had guessed everything. The girl remembered that she had felt it herself from the very first days. The healer didn't know what her father would do if he found out Cassadine's true origins. The blonde admitted that he had a very important conversation with his daughter. The man said that this morning, Cassadine came to him and asked him to throw him out of the family. The Count reported that the boy had asked him to deliver a letter to Ariane. The young man had conveyed that he could no longer cause inconvenience to their family. The healer excitedly asked her father what he had answered. The Count said that he had refused the boy's request. The blonde said that he had to finish the job himself. The guy promised to repay Ariane for all her mercy. With a heavy heart, the man reported that Cassadine was no longer in their house and that he had left. The blonde man pulled Kindle to his knees. The room was dimly lit, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. The boy threw a rough, baggy robe over himself. Cassadine took one of the medicine bottles and sniffed the contents, realizing that the words of the slave chul had made sense. The boy smirked and poured the contents of the bottle onto the floor. Taking his daughter by the hand, the Count told her that a light feathered bird used to fly into the garden and often linger on this tree. It returned to the same place every year. The man admitted that he himself did not notice how he began to rejoice when he heard sweet chirping from the office. The blonde said that now he understood why this feeling seemed so familiar to him. The father admitted that Cassadine became such a bird for him. The man assured that at first he considered the slave simply impudent and did not like him. The Count explained that he had addressed him as father only in front of Ariane, but never in person. The man admitted that one day he had lost his temper. The father asked the girl if she knew what the blonde man had answered. Cassadine thanked him for speaking to him first, as he considered himself a mere slave. The Count was furious because the young man had no dignity whatsoever, but the blonde assured him that he was in no position to worry about his own dignity. Cassadine assured the Count that he was happy to be with his sister. The healer tried to understand what he was thinking about while he was next to her. The girl did not know if all those words were a lie. A picture of warm memories flashed before Arian's eyes. The Countess felt sorry that she had asked him to tell her about the past, but not about feelings. Noticing his daughter's sadness, the man said that despite the fact that Cassadine asked to be expelled from the family, he promised to definitely return. The Count, trying to calm Ariane down, explained to her that the young man had left a letter for her and asked her to trust him. The blonde asked him to tell her not to be sad. The events move on 2 days later to the Duke's castle in the north. Heavy clouds dimmed the dim light of the stars. The brunette hadn't expected him to appear before him personally. Damien couldn't believe that the Count's slave was involved in the disappearance of his butler. The guy was furious that Cassadine dared to show up in the duchy in person. The blonde asked the Archduke not to rush to conclusions. The slave assured him that he had long been expelled from the family and was no longer connected to the county. Damien smirked and said that it was a fair enough ending for a slave who had tried to get in over his head. Calmly, Cassadine said that he had done it without the aristocrat's participation. The brunette asked if he had decided to take revenge. The guy said that he intended to offer a deal. Laughing, Damien asked again how the slave brat could offer him a deal. The brunette was amazed that he was so thirsty for death. The Archduke asked the boy if he thought he would agree to a deal for the sake of some butler. But he noted that the blonde was hopelessly stupid. Damien grinned and said that he knew perfectly well how much his opponent was capable of falling. The brunette said that even for a dirty slave, this was too much. Cassadine admitted that he had to sell his body to survive. Rab claimed that drinking human blood to survive was no better. The handsome man noted that the butler had many such bottles. The blonde reminded him that when he had a heart attack, he refused the court doctor and called Kindle. Damien was surprised that he had come to his estate just to say that. The Archduke assured him that the bottles contained goat's blood, and he had only called Kindle because he had been helping him with his illness for a long time. Taking the bottle in his hands, the blonde noticed that the elderly butler had quite a lot of work. The slave knew that his tasks included supplying medicine, helping his master, and even searching for information. The guy insisted that he was able to approach Kindle so easily only because he personally hired a servant to work in the duchy. Cassadine noted that all the workers were young, without chronic illnesses, and without connections. The blonde explained that despite the fact that servants were constantly being recruited into the duchy, they were almost never to be found in the estate itself. The guy wondered where all the workers had disappeared to. Damien, his hand shaking, pulled out his jade sword. The Archduke asked the blonde how he dared to blackmail him. The brunette pointed his sword at the slave's neck, preparing to finish him off. Cassadine's face was a smirk, and his eyes were calm. Some time ago, the Archduke also pointed his sword at a man. Damien reported that his patience was at its limit. The brown-haired man said in a trembling voice that he had noticed that the patient's heart condition had supposedly improved. The guy reminded him that he had promised a generous reward for the treatment method and asked what the problem was. The Archduke warned that if he did not speak, he would have to ask in a different way. Without stopping shaking, the guy assured that he was ready to tell everything and asked not to tell anyone else. The brown-haired man said that he needed to drink blood, but it would not cure the disease. The doctor said that she had tried many healing herbs, but one day blood accidentally got into the infusion, and it really did ease the master's pain. Smiling, Damien suggested that first they should try the blood of the healer himself. A heart-rending scream rang out in the small, dusty room. Soon the poor guy's brown eyes began to glaze over. Stepping on the attacker's sword, the blonde said that he had not wanted to fight him at all. Cassadine promised to keep the secret and promised to return the butler if he fulfilled his small request. The Archduke carefully examined the guy with his gaze, trying to understand what this freak was up to. The boy noticed that the slave spoke quite well and was agile enough to dodge his sword. Damien noticed that the boy was too smart for a simple slave. The Archduke realized that such an ally could be more useful than Kindle. The blonde man said that he wanted to participate in the martial arts competition that would be held on the anniversary of the founding of the Seville Empire. He asked the Archduke to cross swords with him in the competition. All the events on that day were timed to coincide with the founding of the Seville Empire. People were most looking forward to the martial arts competitions held by the emperor himself. Participants were free to choose any weapon they wanted, which could lead to death. Absolutely everyone was allowed to participate, regardless of their origin or status. The winner received a generous prize from the emperor, and a commoner could even be awarded a title at his request. Damien never took part in competitions because he saw no point in wasting his time on it. The brunette asked what would happen if Kasadin lost. The slave reminded him that he had only asked him to fight him, and that would be enough. The handsome man asked the Archduke not to give in to him. Ariane sat at a small coffee table. Her hand lay on the ill-fated letter. The Countess's gaze was indifferent. The healer stood up abruptly from her chair and turned to Sasha. The blonde asked her to get ready, saying that she needed to go somewhere. The maid was a little taken aback by her mistress's sudden decision. The Countess informed her that an urgent meeting was awaiting her. Ariane explained that she couldn't just wait because she had a lot to do too. The blonde said that she needed to take another person with her. Sasha asked who the mistress had in mind. The Countess grinned and said that she could get ready on her own. The mistress asked the brunette to tidy up the slave tool's hair. The guy diligently did his job. Drops of sweat were pouring down the big guy's luxurious torso. The maids held out a small tray and asked the brunette to take at least a little food. Tool thanked the girls for their care. Watching everything from the side, Sasha could not understand why her colleagues were so fussed. The brunette told Tool that the mistress had called him. The slave smiled and replied that he was already on his way. As the maid cut his dark, raven-colored hair, she was amazed at how much the boy did around the estate. The guy admitted that he wanted to somehow repay Mrs. Arian's kindness. Smiling, Sasha assured him that there was no one more caring than my lady. The brunette said that the girl had had a very hard time in recent days and was worried. The maid assured that Arian had cheered up. Strands of dark hair quickly fell to the floor. Soon the brunette informed the slave that everything was ready. Sasha asked if the guy felt any better. Smiling, Tool adjusted his new hairstyle in front of the mirror. He thanked the girl for her help. Soon the door opened and Arian entered the room. The healer informed them that the carriage was already waiting for them. The maid was surprised by such a sudden meeting. Looking at the vase, the blonde realized that the forget-me-not that his beloved had saved had wilted after all. The Count informed Her Majesty that it was impossible to heal the soul, like a disease of the body. The man confessed that he too was left without a wife, only with a daughter the same age as the crown prince. The healer said he understood how painful loneliness could be and asked the woman to take care of herself. Leon remembered that his mother had never wanted to marry, but the power of the emperor was more important than feelings. The prince realized that in his memories, she had always been sad. The emperor called out to his son and asked where he had gone without even warning him. Leon asked his father if he was interested in his affairs. The boy assumed that the blonde had something to do. The man reminded him that he was his only son. Leon reminded his father about his concubines. The guy was sure that the emperor had other children to whom he could bestow his attention. The blonde explained that it was an unwanted marriage, and his mother did not care whether he had mistresses or not. Turning around, the prince said that he would not live the same way as his father. The emperor asked his son where he was going. Leon said that an important guest would soon arrive. When the blonde saw his beloved, a radiant smile shone on his face. The guy admitted that he had been waiting for a meeting with her for a very long time. The prince recalled how Ariane said that she was going to the palace, but he was not informed of her arrival. The second son of the empire admitted that he almost went to search for him. The healer claimed that there were no problems on the way to him and thanked him for his concern. The blonde noticed that his beloved looked healthy and asked if everything was okay with her. The girl thanked His Highness that Tool had settled in her home and helped with her affairs. The prince assured that he was glad to hear that the gift from the Archduke had been useful to his beloved. The blonde lowered her eyes and said that she wanted to ask Leon for another favor. The girl explained that it concerned a visit to the Duke's house in the north. A little taken aback, the blonde asked why the girl needed to go there. The Countess explained that she had received permission, but the slave's papers were still with the Duke. The girl assured that this visit would help avoid future conflicts. The guy asked why his beloved had to go there in person. The prince warned that Damien had always been a mean man, but had recently become especially unruly. The healer grinned and reminded him that he could guarantee her protection, and then she wouldn't have to worry. Ariane said that Damien was a spontaneous person, from whom you could expect anything. The prince asked what was the matter. The blonde assured that she did not want to shamelessly ask him for a favor. After thinking for a moment, His Highness said that he himself would like to go with her. Ariane assured that his visit could be seen as having a political subtext. The blonde sighed heavily and said that his title did not solve all problems. Smiling, the guy said that this way she could show that she was under the protection of the imperial family. Soon, Ariane finished packing and announced that it was time for them to leave. The brunette was genuinely surprised when he saw the imperial carriage in front of his mansion. The healer wanted to make sure that the Archduke took her bait. The Countess turned to the guy and noted that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Damien, noticeably nervous, asked what had happened, that she had arrived with the knights. The blonde lowered her eyes and said that the prince had assigned her an escort. The girl assured him that she had not come to quarrel with him. The Countess's gaze pierced the boy, suggesting that he knew what she was talking about. Damien tried to reassure himself that he was going to see her anyway. The Countess asked if he was feeling any better. The brunette realized that the girl had thought of everything, despite the fact that she had come to him herself. The Archduke was alarmed by the escort that arrived with Ariane. The guy still did not know what her plan was. Damien realized that the blonde did not appear to pity. The brunette was sure that she had another goal in mind. The Archduke was not going to miss this chance. After a few minutes of thought, the guy invited the guest to come inside. The Countess thanked him for receiving her despite the suddenness of the visit. The brunette explained that they had much to discuss. The guy asked why Ariane hadn't come with her brother. The healer was very irritated by this question. The blonde herself was determined to find out whether her brother had visited the Archduke. The Countess understood that Damien either did not know about it or did not want to say anything. The blonde sighed heavily and said that he had left for a while. Ariane admitted that she was angry because he had insulted her brother at the banquet, but her heart sank when he lost consciousness. The girl asked Tool to leave the room for a while. Smiling, the slave said that he would wait by the door, and assured her that she could call him if she needed him. The Archduke explained that both were slaves. Damien was amazed that the girl could tame the beast. The healer explained that he was grateful for her help in healing his wounds. The brunette said that he was ready to listen to her reason for going so far. The guy asked when she met such a skilled doctor who could reattach a cut tongue. The Countess rejoiced that he had fallen for this trick. The blonde explained that this was an innate healing gift, not a medical skill. The girl warned that the information she would reveal was strictly confidential. The Countess explained that the healer was only allowed to treat direct descendants of the Emperor and Empress. The blonde said that it was forbidden to tell strangers about him. Ariane explained that the slave also did not know how exactly his wounds were healed. The healer assured him that if they found out that she had told him, she would be in trouble. The girl warned that she could receive a reprimand from the imperial family. Ariane informed him that he must keep this information secret. The Archduke warned that if she was lying, she should prepare for the consequences. The healer assured him that she would not lie to him. The blonde explained that she was rude to him because she did not know that he was suffering from a serious illness. Ariane admitted that it was eating her up, and she decided to tell. The girl assured him that he could definitely be cured. The blonde explained that it was this healer who saved the prince when he was poisoned. With interest, Damien asked the lady how she knew about him. The brunette asked the Countess to tell him about this healer. The Countess placed her hand on her heart and said that it was she who had returned Tool's cut-out tongue. The girl knew that after these words, the Archduke would most of all desire to cure his ailing heart. The blonde had no intention of repeating the mistake she had made in her past life. The healer planned to either leave the disease or control the frequency of the pain attacks. Ariane longed for the brunette to continue clinging to a vain hope, not knowing that it would be a rotten rope that would break over the abyss. The blonde said that she had been taken to the castle often since childhood. The Countess assured that when the crown prince was poisoned, she was the first to be contacted. Damien assumed that she was close to the crown prince. The girl assured that it was only because of her natural gift. The blonde said that if he had a room with a bed or a sofa, she could show him her abilities at that very moment. The girl asked the brunette to observe her health after her treatment. The healer said that if he decided that he could trust her, they would forget about everything that had happened. Grabbing her hand, the brunette offered to test her skills right now. The Duke calmly led the blonde along the long corridors. The girl was in a panic about this place, because it was here that she was killed in her past life. Ariane clearly remembered that there was something she couldn't ask about when she learned of her father's death. The blonde realized that her lover had also been on the battlefield and had failed to protect him. She could not have suspected that Damien was capable of murder. On that fateful day, the brunette assured her that her father's body was mutilated beyond recognition. The Archduke assumed that the funeral would upset his beloved even more. The guy allegedly hoped that she would feel better. Ariane begged her lover to let her see her father one last time. Damien tucked his silky hair behind his ear, reminding him that he didn't like to repeat himself. The guy said that the Countess wouldn't take a step out of the duchy without his permission. The brunette said that he sympathized with her and reminded her that he was the only person she had left close to her. The healer realized that it was a miracle that she had a second chance and that she would no longer be able to trust or love someone. Ariane knew she would have to face her doubts. The Countess knew she would never be happy as long as she lived under the same sky with the brunette. Opening the door, the brunette asked the girl to come in quickly. Ariane's heart flashed with hope that she would meet her brother again. Deep blue eyes lit up with hope, but her gaze met only an empty, gloomy room. Only at that moment did the girl realize how much she missed Cassadine, his smile and warm embrace. The blonde realized that she had made a mistake when she let him go. The Countess knew that if she could love someone again, it would be Cassadine. The girl mentally turned to her brother, trying to find out where he was. Looking at the tied-up man, the blonde realized that there was very little time left until the anniversary. Only now did he realize that he had done this not for revenge, but for himself and Ariane. Cassadine desperately wanted to see her. In the twilight of the night, the boy gently touched his lips to the blade given to him by his beloved. This brought back memories of the peaceful life he had lived with her. The Duke lit a couple of candles to give the living room a less gloomy appearance. The girl noticed that there were books by the philosopher Elia on the shelves. Her attention was particularly drawn to The Boundaries of Good and Evil. The healer said that it was her favorite book. Damien was genuinely surprised, because he also liked the book very much. The Countess remembered everything he liked perfectly, since she had fought for his love for a long time. With a heavy sigh, the brunette said that nothing could completely separate good and evil. The boy quoted lines from books, because what was evil to some could be good to others. The Countess said it was an excerpt from Chapter 3. Ariane said that it was a very good phrase that made you think. The guy looked at her in bewilderment. The blonde asked His Highness what had happened. Damien said that she had surprised him with her knowledge. The girl said that she would consider it a compliment. The blonde said that it was time for them to begin the treatment. The healer asked if Damien could have taken off his shirt. Ariane asked if the boy had a servant that he kept nearby. The girl reported that when she needed to turn on the light or get dressed, the servants always helped her. The Archduke sadly reported that he had a close servant, but he was very far away. The healer suspected something was wrong, because Kindle would not leave his master without a good reason. The blonde said that she had found the reason why even famous doctors couldn't help him. The girl explained that the disease was too advanced, and even she couldn't cure him right away. Damien urged Countess Ariane to demonstrate her healing skills. The girl realized that when the pain returned soon, she would have free access to the Archduke's residence as a doctor. The brunette rose abruptly from the sofa and asked how this was possible. The guy reported that his chest pain had completely gone away. Damien realized that you told the truth about your healing abilities. Smiling, the blonde asked the gentleman why she had to lie. The Archduke said he could not believe his eyes. Damien extended his hand to the girl. The Countess suggested that this be considered their reconciliation. The brunette suggested shaking hands in honor of this. The guy apologized for the misunderstanding and for his rudeness. The Archduke asked her what her favorite phrase from The Borders of Good and Evil was. She quoted a few lines from the book. Squeezing her hand tightly, Damien said that they were alike in many ways and suggested that they spend the night talking. The blonde stood up abruptly and said that it was too late. Ariane explained that if they just talked and she stayed the night at his estate, it could give rise to vicious rumors. The guy admitted that he hadn't thought about it at all. The brunette offered to accompany her to another mansion on the property. Ariane said that her father would worry about her and thanked him for his concern. The healer reminded him that his illness could not be cured at once. The blonde reminded him that the pain could return until they finished the treatment. The Archduke asked if he could contact her if the pain returned. The girl answered positively and assured that she was ready to do everything for her friends. The Countess apologized for what she said and asked not to pay attention to it. Firmly squeezing her hand, The brunette said that everything was fine and offered to be friends. Damien gently kissed the blonde's hand, informing her that they had to start somewhere. The slave was overjoyed to see Lady Ariane. The girl assumed that she had been quite late. The lady informed Tulle that he could begin preparing for departure and promised to come soon. The brunette reminded that there will soon be a celebration in honor of the anniversary of the founding of the empire. The boy asked if she would be attending the celebration, since the county was not far from the capital. Ariane explained that she had not yet asked her father about it. The Archduke said that he wanted to repay her by showing her something interesting that day. The boy asked the healer to be sure to come. With genuine curiosity, the blonde asked about the gift. The brunette assured her that it would not be interesting if he said this in advance, and he said that he wanted her to look forward to this day. Ariane admitted that she was now even more interested. The brunette said that he was very curious why others did not dare to look at him during conversations, and he admired that she did not hide her eyes. Damien shared that he had a fierce look from birth, and many interpreted it, and often came to the conclusion that he was a terrible person. The blonde assured that when she first saw him, she thought he was very handsome. The Archduke said that he was very pleased to hear this. Taking her hand, the brunette asked if she remembered the 4th verse from the 4th chapter. The healer quoted that you should not give away your heart easily, but do not doubt the person whose heart was hard to get. The guy said that he no longer doubted her after she helped him with his illness. The brunette said that he hoped to win her trust. Ariane no longer wanted to follow him into the underworld, no matter how much he lured her with sweet words. The blonde smirked and said that she believed the master. Seeing off the lady, Damien said that he hoped to see her at the founding anniversary. As the carriage drove away from the estate, Damien realized that the blonde girl had divine powers. The brunette put his hand on his chest and realized that when the pain went away after drinking blood, his chest still felt heavy and tight. He noticed that after the treatment, he felt lighter, as if a lead ball had been removed from there. The boy was furious that all this time the imperial family had hidden such a valuable gift exclusively for themselves. The brunette rejoiced that this ability was now his. A malicious grin appeared on Damien's face. Smiling, Leon asked how the negotiations with Damien had gone. The prince asked the blonde if everything was okay. Ariane assured that thanks to his help, everything went smoothly. The blonde assured that he could have accompanied her himself if he had known that the lady would manage so quickly. The healer assured that it was not far from the residence to his palace. The countess was sure that he was worried, and therefore it came to him immediately. The guy confirmed her assumption. Leon said that he would be happy to treat her to a cup of tea, but then the girl would return home even later. Ariane assured him that he had already done so much for her, and that she should not bother him anymore. His Highness assured him that it was not difficult for him. Seeing the surprise in his deep blue eyes, the blonde asked what had happened. Embarrassed, Ariane asked why he had been so kind to her. The prince laughed a cheerful laugh. The guy admitted that he himself did not know the reason. The blonde gently straightened one of the strands of her luxurious hair, after which he patted the healer on the head. The girl was furious that he had ruined her luxurious hairdo. Waving goodbye, Leon said that he hoped to see her soon. The healer realized that His Highness was indeed a very strange man. The girl was sitting with her father at dinner. The count asked the girl if the prince had helped her. The blonde asked what had been going on with Leon lately. The man explained that the prince usually didn't care about other people's affairs. The count realized that the boy had had this reaction ever since the Empress's death. His father said that he was grateful to His Highness in any case. Ariane noticed that the prince didn't look like a man who didn't care about anything. The blonde realized that she hadn't crossed paths with Leon in her past life. The healer realized that if it weren't for Cassadine, they would never have crossed paths in this life. The countess assumed there was something she didn't know. The girl asked with trepidation whether there had been any news about her brother while she was away. The man reported that the stubborn man had not even sent a word. Trying to cheer up his daughter, the blonde reminded her that he had left just recently and should return soon. The girl looked thoughtfully into her glass of wine. Ariane wondered if she could have left first that day. The count asked his daughter what had happened. The healer admitted that she had to leave on business. The man was surprised and asked where his daughter was going in the morning. Smiling, the blonde said that one stubborn guy had run away without saying a word to her, and she was going to catch him. Ariane realized that it was time to act independently, and not to let things slide. The healer remembered that in the letter, Cassadine promised to return after the problems were solved. The blonde didn't know if he was born a slave for gladiator fights or came from the destroyed kingdom of Haran. The girl was sure that Damien played an important role in both cases. Ariane remembered that the Archduke was convinced of Cassadine's slave origins. The healer understood that he would not belittle the aristocrat without solid evidence. The Countess wondered what she would do if she were in Cassadine's place. Ariane suggested that she would first find Damien and try to find out how much he knew. The girl realized that the sales documents listed Cassadine as a gladiator. The brown-haired man greeted Lady Circia. The slave owner assured her that he would have made tea if he had known she was coming. The Countess asked if he had anything else he wanted to say. The man apologized, explaining that he had already told Cassadine everything. The slave owner asked why she had made a return visit. Ariane realized that her guess was correct, because her brother had also been to this place. The man, noticeably nervous, asked if the blonde had told the lady everything. Looking at the brown-haired man's reaction, the Countess realized that he did not yet know that Cassadine had been expelled from the Count's family. The blonde asked if he was telling the truth. The man assured that he had nothing to hide from milady. The brown-haired man assured that he was wearing a cloak, but he understood from his voice that he looked like him. The slave trader reported that the guy took the document and left. Ariane guessed that it could have been Kindel, since he did all of Damien's dirty work. Shaitan noted that Cassadine was quite popular and well-known. The man admitted that he could not even imagine that one document could cause the lady so much trouble. The slave owner explained that he himself was surprised when he saw the article. Ariane couldn't believe that her document had been sold. The Duchess realized that the owner was only capable of thinking about profit and didn't care how the young man lived after that monstrous arena. The girl understood that the slave trader had no sense of guilt. She realized that this man spoke only in the language of money. Ariane noted that she paid 5 billion for Cassadine. The Countess said that this amount was insignificant compared to how much Cassadine meant to her. The girl said that despite the fact that he had made Cassadine look like a slave to people, it would no longer matter. The blonde said that the young man now belonged to her. The healer warned that if the man said anything careless about him again, she would give him a shake-up worse than closing the arena. The slave owner realized that even though the gladiator slave and Miss Ariane were not related by blood, they still acted the same way. Late in the evening, the blonde man came into the brown-haired man's shop, saying that he didn't want to chat for long. Breathing heavily, the guy suggested getting straight to the point and advised the slave trader to answer his questions. Cassadine asked who came to find out information about him. The freed slave took into account that a week ago an old man with a monocle came to whom he sold the documents. The brown-haired man assured that he did not know who he was selling to. The man assured that he did not know that he was the young master of the Circia family. Cassadine warned him that he would cut off his money-hungry hands if he caused problems for Circus's family again. The blonde asked him not to give him any reason to return. The man actually had no idea who the old man was and simply took the money offered to him. The coachman informed milady that they had already arrived. Ariane did not know where her younger brother was, but she felt that it was somehow connected with Damien. The Countess knew she had to go to the founding anniversary. The healer knew that the closer she was to the Archduke, the easier it would be to find clues about Cassadine. The girl asked Sasha what kind of carriage was standing at the entrance to the estate. The blonde asked if any important guests had arrived. The maid asked the mistress to quickly go into the living room, saying that she must see this. Bowing, the man informed the lady that all the gifts were from Damien. There was a subtle disgust in the blonde's eyes. The healer realized that the flow of gifts from Damien had been going on for several days. The Count asked his daughter when she had managed to become friends with the Archduke. The loader said that if the blonde wanted something, she could tell them right away. The blonde asked to tell Damien that she did not need to give him anything. The man explained that the gentleman had assured her that it was all a sign of friendship and asked her not to be shy about accepting his gifts. The servant informed her that when the two arrived for the founding anniversary, Damien would accompany her. The girl's father asked him to tell her that they would see each other tomorrow. The servant said that they should have gone then. The Duke asked his daughter what she felt for the brunette. The healer assured that everything was not at all as her father thought. The Count looked down and realized that he was clearly showing interest in her. With sadness, Arian realized that he had changed his relationship for the sake of possessing her healing skills. The girl knew the Archduke very well and how he used people who were not indifferent to him. The blonde felt that now it was his turn to find himself in a luxurious trap. The Countess could clearly hear her heart beating. The healer could not sleep, since she had not seen Cassidin for more than 10 days. With nostalgia, Ariane remembered that when he first came to her room, it was also a full moon. The girl realized that the more time passed, the more clearly his image was imprinted in her head. More than anything in the world, Ariane wanted to ask him many things and tell him. Standing by the open window, the girl prayed for him to return. The healer heard a painfully familiar voice that called her sister. Without putting on her shoes, the blonde quickly went down the stairs to the garden. Looking around, she assumed that it was just delirium. Cassidin came up to her from behind, after which he pressed her tightly to himself. Hot tears appeared on the girl's face. She beat her brother furiously with her little hands and asked him why he had left home without telling her. The Countess asked him if he knew how much her heart ached for him. The girl asked where he had been and admitted that she had been very worried. Gently taking her hand, the blonde said that he had also missed her very much. Cassidin said he liked her so much that he had no other words. The boy assumed that the healer hated him for it. After Damien's betrayal, the Countess was sure that she would never be able to love again. But the gentle fingers, the warm smile, as if painted on a picture and intended only for her, it became very dear to her heart. Ariane realized what she felt for him only when he left. The blonde admitted that she was incredibly happy when she realized that the young man had returned again. The healer said that she didn't care what others would say. Ariane told the boy that he didn't have to call her sister anymore. The Countess tried for a long time to fit their relationship into the framework of brother and sister, trying to pay back for taming him. Cassidin couldn't believe that her ladyship allowed him to be so close. Having kissed him passionately, the blonde said that she wanted to confess to him when he returned. The healer used her abilities to heal the scars on the boy's hands. The girl asked the handsome man if he was surprised by this outcome of events. Cassidin said that he knew it from the very beginning. The blonde admitted that he tried to apply the ointment she showed him during their first meeting again, but it had no effect. The handsome man explained that later, when she healed his scars, he was only convinced of this. Ariane explained that they were under the protection of the imperial family only because of this gift. The blonde explained that if someone greedy for power found out about it, it could become a vulnerability for their family. Ariane asked if he remembered how Damien clutched his heart and fell at the banquet. The blonde reported that the Archduke was terminally ill and he was ready to do anything to be cured. The healer reminded that the empire was expanding its borders very aggressively. The Countess assured that war could start at any moment. The blonde shared that she was afraid that the brunette would use this opportunity to gain power over her. Ariane insisted that if her father did not return from the war, she would become defenseless and could end up in the hands of the Archduke. The blonde admitted that this was the reason she brought Cassidin into the family in the first place. The boy asked the healer how she knew about Damien's thoughts. The Countess reminded him that he was their common enemy. Ariane said that the Archduke would never miss the opportunity to destroy her and her father. The girl admitted that it was difficult for her to explain everything to Cassidin. The blonde said she wouldn't be surprised if the handsome man didn't believe her. Squeezing her hand tightly, Cassidin assured her that everything was fine. Looking into his deep amethyst eyes, the girl asked if he hated her. The guy reminded her that he also used her for his revenge. The blonde admitted that he thought it was stupid to care about other people, but he decided to stay. Then he weighed the pros and cons. Cassidin explained that she had no idea how much her words and touch had helped him. He was sure that if the Countess had not helped him, he would have taken the wrong road and would have burned in the flames. The guy said that he directed his anger in the same direction that his beloved had chosen. Cassidin reminded the blonde that he was her sword. The blonde shared that he had learned a shocking truth about the Duke. The guy assured that Ariane's assumptions were correct and that he drank human blood as a cure for heart pain. The handsome man told her that the Archduke hired people without connections as servants and killed them. Ariane was shocked that he was even capable of such a thing. The girl realized that Chul's words had meaning. The healer asked how he knew about it. The boy explained that he used a butler named Kindle to get to the Duke. Ariane said that this was important evidence. The healer claimed that as long as Damien believed she could heal him, the killings would stop. The girl promised to make him pay for all his crimes. Cassadine admitted that he had much to do and expected to return much later. The boy claimed that he saw the Archduke showering her with gifts. Ariane was shocked that he was going to come back even later. The blonde said that he had no excuses, since he refused to call her sister. The girl asked Cassadine to call her by her first name from that moment on. The handsome man said that he had only one thing left to do. He asked her to trust him and wait another day. The blonde promised to return with a clear conscience and tell her absolutely everything. Gently touching his face, the healer asked the young man to take care of himself. Having kissed his beloved goodbye, the handsome man promised to definitely return to her. The events dynamically shift to the morning of the Foundation anniversary. Street vendors were calling on townspeople to buy freshly prepared food, flowers, bouquets, and brooms. The man turned to Lady Circia. The brunette asked if she had had time to look around the festival. The servant greeted his lordship. The man said that the Duke had asked him to escort Milady. The escort assured him that Damien had prepared good seats for them in advance. The host welcomed everyone present, spectators and participants in the martial arts competition. The emperor was surprised to see Count Circius. The embarrassed blonde greeted the shining son of the empire with a deep bow. The blonde asked the count what he was doing in the imperial box. The man apologized and explained that the Archduke's man had brought them. He assumed that he might have mixed something up. The emperor invited the blonde to sit down next to him, saying that he would have more fun with a familiar person. His Highness invited the lady to sit down as well, explaining that he had just been talking to the girl. The emperor said that he knew that the brunette had been sending Ariane many gifts lately. The blonde wondered how the healer had managed to get so close to him so quickly. The clear son of the empire asked the girl if something was brewing between them. The healer understood why he had seated her closer to the emperor. The girl doubted that he would believe her if she denied everything. The blonde mentally turned to her lover, reminding herself that he was the first to decide on a bold step, and now it was her turn to show courage. The girl calmly informed His Highness that her heart was already taken by another. The father was a little taken aback by his daughter's words, trying to figure out who was in her heart. The count turned pale and asked for forgiveness from His Highness. Smiling, the man assured her that any father would have reacted the same way. Smiling, the blonde said that he knew about her meetings with Leon. The emperor asked the girl if he was in her heart. The blonde sighed heavily and assured that she knew her place. The man noticed that the countess was very smart. Ariane was ready to give up the prince for her own happiness. His lordship asked the girl if this was her first time at a martial arts competition. The count, answering for his daughter, said that it was the first time she had been to such an event. The emperor said that it was a fascinating spectacle, where any kind of weapon was allowed. The man explained that the main reason for its popularity was that in this game, death is an honor, not a crime or shame. And those who can defy the fear of death will get what they want for winning. The emperor explained that if the winner wanted a title, he would get it. If he wanted money, he would not need anything for the rest of his life. The emperor personally opened the 34th martial arts competition. Standing up from the throne, the man announced that the winner would be honored in accordance with his courage and will. The blonde wished blessings to all the participants. The host said that 50 participants had gone through many trials to get to the arena. Shaitan assured that the competition will be held according to the tournament system with elimination, and the use of personal weapons is also allowed. The man assumed that all the residents knew the first fighter, Duke Damien Kin Diisa. The brunette said that he felt uncomfortable being the first. The emperor was taken aback when he saw the first participant. The man asked Ariane if she knew that the Archduke would be taking part. The blonde, looking down, answered negatively. The blonde understood that for commoners, this competition was the only chance to improve their lives. The emperor was shocked by Damien's greed. The host announced that the battle was about to begin. The brunette immediately noticed that his opponent had too many holes in his defense, and his stance was no good. The Archduke easily knocked the sword away from the commoner, grazing his cheek with the blade. In a trembling voice, the brute announced that he surrendered. The host asked how this was possible, since the competition had just begun, and one of the contenders had already given up. The man noted the level of His Highness's skill. Damien found the event boring. Looking at Ariane, the brunette realized that there was an incredible lightness in his body thanks to her abilities. Damien began to think about what he could ask the emperor as a reward for his victory. The host announced that it was time to move on to the next fight. The man announced that this candidate did not want to reveal his real name and would be performing in a black cloak. Arian felt sick to her stomach, and panic was evident in her eyes. The emperor asked the girl if she knew this participant. The blonde assured that she was mistaken. The healer could not understand what the guy was doing in this place. The countess realized that this was what Damien had told her. The girl tried to convince herself that there was no point in worrying. The blonde was sure that her beloved would not have entered the arena without calculating everything down to the last detail. The girl believed that he would keep his promise and return. Arian had a premonition, but now everything was different. The man noticed that the arena was seething that day. He explained that there was a talented fighter there, and no one had stood up to him for more than 5 minutes. The brown-haired man enthusiastically told passers-by that Damien had participated in this tournament. The guy was indisputably confident in his victory. Turning around, the customer explained that she was not talking about the Archduke, but about another participant. The girl said that he cut his way to the final with an old blade. The emperor admitted that in all these years he had not seen such talented fighters with such a well-worn sword. His Highness noticed that the boy moved completely differently from the others. The Lord said that he did not know that there was such a master in the empire, and he assured that he was very sorry that he would have to fight Damien. The bright son of the empire claimed that he did not want such a talent to perish. The host grinned and said that the long-awaited final had arrived. Shaitan encouraged the crowd. He assured that the moment for which they had all gathered in this arena had arrived. The man introduced Archduke Damien and the unnamed contestant. The brown-haired man said that their fight was about to begin. The face of the empire's first blade was lit up with a smug grin. The Duke had no doubt in his victory. The warm summer sun reached its zenith. Taking his sword out of its sheath, Damien reminded the guy that he himself asked him not to give in. The brunette grinned and promised to fulfill his request. Through clenched teeth, Kasadin muttered that it was a great honor for him. A few moments later, the brunette rushed into battle. The blonde watched with excitement, waiting for the outcome of the duel. The Archduke asked the slave why he was sitting in defense. Damien said that he was very disappointed and reminded that he was very interested in his little sister. The brunette reminded that he left the family and she was no longer his sister. Kasadin warned that if he mentioned her name again, he would finish him off in this very arena. Looking closely at the slave, Damien said that he had a high opinion of his own powers to say such a thing to the face of the invulnerable. The brunette assumed that he did it for Arian. Fury shone in his amethyst eyes, and the slave rushed towards his opponent. The boy could not understand where Kasadin got such speed from. The gladiator noticed that Damien had gone on the defensive. The boy asked if he wanted to disappoint him. A few moments later, the slave walked around him from behind, cutting his opponent's cheek. Scarlet drops slowly flowed from the sharp blade. Damien knew the guy could have hit him in the neck, but he didn't do it on purpose. The brunette was furious that he dared to suggest something like that, knowing from the start that he would win. The Archduke could not understand how his opponent dared to look at him like that. The slave calmly said that he understood what he felt when he decided to take part in the competition. Kasadin advised the boy to moderate his pride. The host and the viewer were amazed that Damien was defeated. The brunette's heart began to ache. The Archduke longed to receive treatment from Ariane again. The guy enjoyed her gaze. Coming closer to the defeated rival, Kasadin warned that if he dared to harm the girl, he would beg for mercy. The swordmaster forbade Damien to devour his beloved with his eyes. The boy assured him that it would be better for the Archduke. The announcer announced that Damien was no longer able to continue the fight, and announced that the winner was the contestant without a name. The emperor asked for a physician to be sent to the Archduke. Coming out on stage, the emperor assured that it was the most exciting fight he had ever seen, and he asked the name of the winner. The participant, kneeling and without looking up, introduced himself. The bright son of the empire noticed that the same name was given to the arena fighter adopted by the count's family. The emperor asked the winner to rise and look at him. Kasadin claimed that Sergei's family had accepted him despite his slave origins, and insisted that he had decided to leave them to avoid causing inconvenience. The guy said that he was still a slave. The emperor looked at the guy thoughtfully and assumed that it was about him that the rumors were going around. The blonde admitted that he wanted to meet him. The man was amazed that despite the fact that fate had given the slave luck, he himself decided to achieve more. The emperor asked if the boy had come to receive the title. The boy, without the slightest hesitation, asked His Highness to give him the best that the ruler could give. One of the knights couldn't help but call the guy an impudent fellow. The emperor stopped his ardor with a wave of his hand. He said that this was the boldest wish of all that he had heard. The blonde assumed that he left the count's family not only because of greed. The winner asked for forgiveness and said that he had one wish that could come true. Kassadin explained that he greatly appreciated all the kindness that those people had shown him. The winner claimed that Circus' family helped him accept himself and understand his worth. The guy insisted that he wanted to pay the count's family for this reason. The brunette said that he was ready to go to war instead of the count for this. His Highness could not believe that the boy asked not to send the count to war. The man realized that for this, the brunette could simply not leave his family. The emperor knew that this could have an impact on the entire county. He knew that if a slave went to war in the count's place, having just joined the family, the count's reputation would inevitably plummet. The man realized that the count's family was the only family of healers in the empire. The emperor knew that while he did not want to send the man to war, he had no reason to single him out. His Highness realized that he had a chance. The blonde informed him that the boy's wish sounded feasible, but it was impossible with his current status. The emperor assumed that Kassadin understood that he was asking for special privileges. The blonde asked what he could give him for fulfilling his wish. The winner fell on his knees and said that he would do whatever His Majesty asked. Piercing the boy with his amber eyes, the emperor asked if he knew what the price would be if Kassadin did not keep his promise. The blonde understood that if the boy could defeat the best swordsman in the empire, only to repay kindness in his blind loyalty, the man realized that the boy was an extremely valuable talent. The blonde couldn't understand how the slave could guess that war was coming. The emperor realized that Elsia was rapidly gaining power. His Highness was sure that Damien had gained his power through his skill with the sword. He understood that if the war with Elsia began, Damien would be very much needed, and his influence would only increase. The ruler rejoiced that someone had appeared to oppose the brunette. The emperor wondered if he would be able to make the guy his faithful dog. The blonde announced to all that the winner of the fight, Kassadin, would become a marquise. Those present were amazed by the generosity of His Highness. One of the servants bowed and informed the milord that he had already come to his senses. Clutching his head, Damien asked if he was in the palace. Shaitan explained to the duke that His Highness the Emperor had ordered him to be looked after. The physician explained that, however, his skills were not sufficient to provide him with good treatment. The brunette realized that the bright son of the empire did not want to show that they had a healer. Damien asked the guy how the duel ended after he lost consciousness. The servant said that the winner received the title of Marquise and that the palace was now preparing for the award ceremony. The count admitted to his daughter that he had no idea what was happening. The man asked if Ariane knew he would show up here. The blonde admitted that she was glad that she had at least managed to see him like that. She hoped that Kassadin would tell her everything. The brunette walked quickly towards the countess, calling out to her. Ariane asked how he felt. The healer admitted that she was worried when he lost consciousness. The visibly nervous archduke said that he was pleased to hear that she was worried about him. The girl noticed that he was pale and breathing heavily. She was sure that the archduke was in great pain and that he had much less control over his emotions. After shaking Damien's hand, the count introduced himself. The blonde was sure that it was the first time he had seen the duke in person. He said that it was a great honor for him. The guy admitted that he had wanted to meet Jigen for a long time. The brunette explained that since he was Ariane's father, he felt like he was his father too. The countess was very angry that Damien had appropriated her father. The blonde was sure that the archduke was a wonderful person. The man asked when he had managed to become friends with his daughter. The guy said it was too early to talk about it. The brunette assured him that it was better to keep it a secret. Damien suggested discussing it the next time the three of them got together for a cup of tea. The boy said that he just wanted to talk to the countess. Jigen asked his daughter to go and talk to the archduke. The man promised to wait for her because there was very little time left before the award ceremony. Looking around, the blonde realized that she did not see any castle guards at all. Damien said that he asked them to step aside because he would not be left unattended in the imperial castle anyway. The blonde wanted to warn him, but he interrupted. The guy asked her not to worry and assured her that he was not going to ask for healing. The Archduke assured her that he supposedly understood that she could have problems if she did this in the castle. The brunette said that he had been thinking about her for a long time and wanted to see her. The healer assured that it was a great honor for her that such a famous young man, barely awake, went to look for her. The guy claimed that he had already heard that Kassadin had received the title. The brunette was amazed at how easily the emperor's word could move him from slave to marquis. Arian wasn't surprised at all when she realized he had turned pale. With a calm expression on his face, the Archduke asked the girl to convey his congratulations to Kassadin. Gently adjusting the silk ribbons of her hat, Damien informed her that it would not be so simple. After all, they were no longer with the family and were unlikely to be as close as before. The guy roughly grabbed the Countess by the waist and pressed her to himself. The blonde asked what he was doing. The Archduke gave the analogy that butterflies were always drawn to the most fragrant flowers, but not only butterflies flew, but also dirty flies. The man mockingly asked who was boring into them with a murderous look. Kassadin approached his beloved and tore her from the brunette's hands. Smiling, the handsome man asked the frightened Countess if she was okay or not. The brunette grinned sarcastically and noticed that the guy had no manners, which was quite expected for a slave. Damien reminded the girl that he was no longer her family and did not deserve her trust or patience. The Archduke assumed that this was why the blonde had banished him. The Marquise assumed that the man was very concerned about the family affairs of strangers and took a dislike to him. The brunette turned pale and explained that he was no match for him after one victory in a competition. Damien ordered the guy to immediately return his assistant Kindle. Hovering over the guy, Kassadin assured him that he was not far from the Duke's estate. The blonde assumed that he would find his butler himself. The guy asked the Marquise if Arian knew what he had done. Damien realized that the slave gladiator, who had rejected all the kindness shown to him, had decided, out of greed for the title, to take part in the competition in order to lure him into it. The Archduke said that the guy had kidnapped his butler and taken him hostage. The brunette told the lady that he was very sorry that she didn't know about it. The guy didn't tell Kassadina that he had deceived not only him, but also his benefactress. The brunette said that he was very sorry that she had gotten involved with such a dangerous person. Damien extended his hand and offered her ladyship his help to escape from the dirty clutches of the impudent and unprincipled liar.